What's up, everyone? Welcome to BRAP. Waiting for the host. I'm actually not hosting tonight. It's actually Game Logic, and he's not here. Oh, now he's here. Here we go. I don't know. Do we need to start the show again, Doomsayer? Let's get Logic in here. He's saying yes. All right. We're gonna go ahead and start the show again. we're gonna hit the BRAP intro one more time.
I don't mess with Logic.
Yeah, he's shaking his head. Yes.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, back with another episode of the Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. Here with me, as usual, I have my stalwart partners in crime, Mr. Basement Radio Arcade Podcast himself. How you doing, BRAP?
Doing well. We got a 2-for-2 intro this evening. I wasn't sure when you were gonna arrive, so I was like, let's just start the show because people were like waiting, but I think it's great to be here.
I think it might be a good vibe to, like, when I'm hosting, to like maybe plan for this to be like the pre-show and then expect when I show up, like, give me like 10 minutes, like give me the old college professor rule, then when I show up in 10 minutes, before 10 minutes, then we can, re-roll the intro.
Yeah, I actually think it's a good idea. We can like shoot the shit before we go live. We could talk about like sports. We could talk about fast food and how exclusivity at fast food chains is going to be obsolete in the future.
Stop it. Stop
it. Apparently McDonald's will be getting rid of the Big Mac as an exclusive item on their menu, and it'll be going to Burger King.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Big Mac should be everywhere, right?
What about the CD?
Yes.
Well, I heard the McRib is going to be shared with Wendy's now.
Oh my God.
I mean,
BRAP, I gotta just ask a real quick question. Does that mean that Chick-fil-A and Popeyes are going to be, switching back and forth in that? Because I know Logic is a big Popeyes guy.
Well, BRAP and I are both supporters of Popeyes.
Okay.
Popeyes is good.
Yes, I definitely agree.
So we should continue going around the room. That man that you just heard on the mic, seeing him on camera, is the other partner in crime, Mr. Doomsayer himself. Doom, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Almost lost my new dog tonight. So was able to grab a hold of her, throw her into the house, and try to repair her collar. But that's about it.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, at least she broke off. Like I was very overwhelmed with work this week, and I put my dog outside, then forgot that I had put him outside while I was like getting ready and was answering like email and Teams messages like in my studio. And then when I transitioned upstairs, didn't even look in his crate and just walked right past it, and did not realize I therefore left my dog outside in the rain for several hours. So big mea culpa. I had to give him a bath, which I really do myself. I usually take him somewhere, but and then had made it up to him over the next few days with copious treats well in excess of his norm. So hopefully we're all made up now. The other man on the camera and soon to be on the mic that you see down there is Mr. Falky. How you doing, Falky?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. This is my first full week back to working out. In my head, I thought I had taken off the month of December, but I went back and looked at like my health app, my activity, and I was like, oh no, I worked out through the end of December, and then I took off when I went home for New Year's, and then I came back again. I was looking at my app and info, and I actually tried to get back into it, and then I got sick. And so since I got sick in mid-January, then I took a couple of weeks off. So here in February is my first week back. Feels pretty good. I've cut the calories down a lot. Usually that causes me a problem when I try and really cut calories severely and then get back to working out. I typically like overwhelm my metabolism, get starving, hungry, and then I go and eat like crap, right? So I'm working out, but I'm eating like crap. So I'm trying to find the balance in that, but it's all good. I don't have a new car like BRAP does over there, so I'm not worried about tires. I've also been agonizing this week over convincing myself that I don't need an RTX 5080 or 5090.
I mean, look, I have gone down the rabbit hole of all things trucks right now. I actually had a conversation with J-Dub this afternoon because he owns like two Ford Raptors, and so he understands like the truck life, right? And was like showing me the BF Goodrich. He has the, I think, KOA3 all-terrain tires on his, and so I've got like tires is I've like, let me tell you, true story logic. I went to the barber shop today, and I was talking to my barber, and I said, "Oh, I traded in the Denali. I got."
That's your first mistake. That's your first mistake, but go ahead.
Well, yeah. So I said to the barber, I said, "Hey, I traded in my Denali and I got a 3/4 ton truck." And he's like, "Well, what kind of 3/4 ton?" I said, "I got a Chevy Silverado 2500 HD." And there was a guy in a chair sitting like I got two chairs down. He heard me. He goes, "Oh, you got a 2500 HD?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, I'm thinking about getting a new one myself." I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." So we start talking, right? He starts dropping all this like truck lingo and acronyms. I've done so much research on YouTube. I understood every word he was saying, and I spoke like I had been in, like I had owned a truck like for the last 10 years of my life. That's how much reading, YouTube videos, like tires, diesel versus gas, towing capacity, GW, gross weight, vehicle rate. Like I was like, oh shit.
So before we get into the rundown of what we've all been playing, Falky, we skipped over you, flooded the airwaves with our own personal goings on. How have you been doing down under?
That's all right. Very busy. Got a fair bit going on work-wise. It's been chaos the last couple of weeks, to be brutally honest. Just work is consuming everything. Half year closes and reporting seasons and all that sort of stuff. Brings a fair bit out from the woodwork, but got a couple of large projects at work that I'm about to get stuck into, and a couple of large projects at home that I'm about to get stuck into. So,
Well, Falky,
yeah, as they keep telling me, when you're good at what you do.
So let's keep you on the mic. It sounds like you've been really busy, but have you got any gaming time in? And if so, what have you been up to?
I've got a little bit. Been plowing ahead with Lost Judgment rather. Started playing Anno Mutationum. Not really. I only got about an hour or so into that. A couple hours in Lost Judgment. That's pretty much it this week. It's been very, very not a gaming week. I've actually spent a lot of my free time reading a couple of novels. So, bit of a change.
Are these exclusive novels?
Yeah. I'm the only one reading them in this house, so yes, they are exclusive.
Well, will that exclusivity in your house be obsolete soon?
Don't go too far down.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I don't. I'm pretty sure no one else will read these books.
Don't go too far down that road, Brad. Remember, one of our friends of the show is Mr. Ramon Terrell, who is an artist and can speak at length about the unification of the publishing industry, via the presence of Amazon and iBooks. So anything good that you're reading, Falky? One of those is like the most interesting thing.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So any of those books of particular interest is one of the two your preferred right now that you want to bring up on air?
Yeah, I'm reading one called Stormbird. Can't remember. I should know what it is. I'm reading the bloody thing. I think it's called Stormbird. It's Stormbird. Hang on, I get the naming right. Yeah, it's a book by Con Igulden. He's Scottish author, I think. So they're sort of semi-fictional stories set in the 15th century England, as they start to lose the land that they had in France. So it's got it's more political drama than actual knights and warfare, but it's warfare elements. But a lot of it is the behind the scenes parry and thrust of spies and political workings and trying to bring down a king without getting caught and all that sort of stuff. So I like political dramas. No one else in this house likes politics at all, so that's why I think it will stay exclusive on my bookshelf. But no, he's got an entire series. I got them for Christmas, and this is the first one in the 5-book set. So, yeah, King Henry VI. And yeah, they lost a heap of land in France, and French king's about to kick him out completely, and got a couple of people working in the background to try and save the king and save the empire and all the rest of that stuff. So they haven't, in case Retro's listening to this later, no, this is before they kicked us out and sent us all down here. So just calm down, mate. Well, before that. So.
Yeah, let's not have any thing explode amongst the Commonwealth on the show tonight. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. War wanted what I was going to ask, which was like, yeah, it sounds kind of very Games of Thrones-ish in some ways.
Yeah, it is. Probably not as it's not as violent. There's a little bit more. Oh, I shouldn't say not as violent. Like there's one, without giving the whole synopsis away. There's 2 operatives are trying to get from France, the castle at Normandy in France, back over to England, and they've got French trying to track them down and kill them, and they've got English agents trying to track them down and kill them, and they've got to do the whole thing on foot. And you look at a map and you go, geez, that's a long way to go. You know, crawling through bloody ditches and killing people in farmhouses to try and stay alive, and just it's intriguing. I'll put it that way. I certainly wouldn't have done that for the king. The king could have rotted in hell for all I would have cared. But yeah, no, it's again, you know, different aspect of what we do. I love stories, and gaming is one avenue to get good stories, and reading books, because I'm a really fast reader as well. So 400-page novels are usually knock one of them over in a weekend. So in a good old paperback book, you can take it anywhere, so you can get 20 minutes, 30 minutes in, and a couple of chapters done, and yeah, it works well.
Well, that's what they're saying about games these days, that you should be able to take your games everywhere. So as far as continuing on the rundown of the games that we've been playing, I'll go next as far as what's been in my rotation. And speaking of as well, games with violence, but actually no politics. Well, I mean, there's politics in the backdrop, but I just played the multiplayer. I haven't played the single player campaign of Call of Duty Black Ops 6. It is Season 2 and double XP weekend. Although one of my co-hosts on the Enough to Keep Going podcast mentioned the last time they had double XP weekend that he was surprised that they were doing Battle Pass double XP. And I was like, no, I don't think that's surprising. I think they've been doing that the whole time. So I guess surprisingly, maybe I never noticed, but it is not Battle Pass double XP weekend. So I guess that is a variation that they've thrown in there from time to time. So I'm continuing on that grind, but I've also had a chance to jump into some single player stuff this week, kind of stretching the legs on the various PC configurations I have in here, since Phil Spencer has been saying that the next Xbox he wants people to buy on the merits of its capabilities only versus the games that are on it, which is a strangely PC-centric theme in terms of consumer consumption. So I have been trying to take a look at the capabilities of my machines and kind of enjoying them and the differences in the way they play games. So I've been playing Metro Exodus on my machine that runs an RTX 3070 Ti, but I play on that machine, which is where I play a lot of competitive multiplayer. It plays on a 25-inch 1080p 240 hertz display, so I often get frame rates in excess of 180 frames per second. So I've been playing Metro Exodus, the enhanced edition, which is done by the studio 4A, which is really a DNA branch off of the original GSC Game World, the guys who did the original Stalker. I've talked about their history in the past here, where in 2011, I think the studio dissolved itself, and a lot of some developers before even the dissolution, some developers had gone to 4A, some developers had gone to become part of Crytek. Eventually, some of those developers also reconstituted into the new GSC Game World. But 4A Studios is a studio that has become renowned for their attention to detail and their hyper focus on just graphics that just kind of drip with every GPU methodology out there that you could possibly crank into it. They did a Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition that added ray tracing as well as a few other things. So it's just really a glorious sight to behold, particularly when it's kicking at frame rates in excess of 180 frames per second. So been having a good time with that. Also had a chance to play some Need for Speed Heat over on my box with an RTX 3080 Ti, and actually played that with a PlayStation 5 DualSense controller. So have had some good fun with that as well. But I've definitely enjoyed this game more than Need for Speed Heat. It's probably a tie between it and Metro Exodus, but maybe not. Was Titanfall 2. So I also played that. I think on the same box with the RTX 3080 Ti, or maybe that was on the box with the 4070 Ti. But Titanfall 2 is just kind of one of those games that it's kind of like watching Bad Boys or watching like a Fast and Furious movie. It's just kind of, drips with a certain amount of camp, but just it's just a game that just feels good, like every minute that you're playing it as a shooter. So obviously I've been playing, in addition to Blob 6, my menu has been full. 3 out of 4 games that have been first-person shooters, so that probably indicates a lot about what types of games I like. But been having fun with that. Respawn. I mean, Vince Zampella now has more than just Respawn. He has the whole Battlefield franchise, as well as a lot of the other things in the EA camp. So just always kind of nice to see what those studios are churning out. BRAP, what have you been playing?
Ninja Gaiden Black. Finally got to it. And I like Ninja Gaiden, but I'm reminded how awful the camera is in the game. If anyone's played Ninja Gaiden Black, the camera is just really bad. Like it just pans away from enemies that are attacking you from the back, and you really can't swing the camera around to kind of control your field of vision or get a better field or just get a better sense of like your surroundings. So that issue, I mean, that was an issue with the original. They didn't address it, and nor did I expect they would address the camera issues in Ninja Gaiden Black. But it's a nice remaster. It's got a little polish to it. It's running Unreal Engine 5, and that's my only complaint. That was my complaint in the original, that the camera angle was ass. But outside of that, it's a fun like hack and slash type game. Ryu is one of my favorite game characters. Ninja Gaiden, one of my favorite franchises, goes back to I think one of the first cinematic cutscenes I ever experienced on a game console was actually Ninja Gaiden on the Nintendo Entertainment System. So I'm actually excited about the Ninja Gaiden game that's going to be coming out that Platinum and Team Ninja are working on. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. You didn't get to play it as much as I'd like, but it's a look. If you like those, like if you get past the camera angles, you like those hack and slash, fast pace, type of games, you may want to try out Ninja Gaiden, especially if you're on Xbox. It's on Game Pass right now. If not, I think it's retailing for $40 on both PlayStation and Xbox. So something to check out if those are the types of games that you like.
The camera angle was part of the challenge of the original game anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a thing. I mean, you could kind of, I think it's the right bumper button that you can hit to kind of reposition the camera angle. But yeah, I mean, it's always been an issue. If you compare it to modern like hack and slash type games, the camera just doesn't hold up. If the camera was more in line with some of the more modern games today, it wouldn't be an issue. It'd be much better. And I actually think that the flow of the combat might be a little bit better too, because it wouldn't be disrupted by the shift of the camera and how janky the camera could be at times.
Does Ninja Gaiden Black have any type of lock on like Demon Souls does, like Souls games do?
I don't think it does. I know that you can block and like do blocking kind of locks on a bit. Well, not really, but it kind of keeps enemies somewhat in front of you. But no, I mean, you tend to get like the issue with the camera too. There's a lot of enemies coming at you, and so the camera allows you to get swarmed pretty easy, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, War called it a camera fighting game.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is because you're fighting the enemies, but you're also fighting the camera because you literally be locked on and on an enemy, and then the camera will like turn around, like wait a minute, like what's happening here? Like that's yeah. So it's I don't know if I feel like when that game came out, I think some of the discussion, if my memory serves me correct, I think some of the discussion around the camera was that Itagaki purposely did this to make the game even more challenging. I don't know if that was if that was part of the design intent of the camera, but it does make the game more challenging.
Yeah. So Retro in the chat says the camera is equivalent to Crocs as safety footwear.
He wants me to show my Crocs. Jesus Christ!
Why does he want it?
Grown man should not admit to that shit.
Why does he want to see your Crocs? I'm confused. What's happening here?
Oh Jesus Christ, man!
I think he's making a riff on foot fetishes on our YouTube channel. We don't want to be demonetized.
I don't even want to have that conversation. I don't want to know.
So
There's
yeah, go ahead.
So there's a gulf in a difference of opinion, let's put it that way, between what Americans think sensible footwear is and what the rest of the world thinks sensible footwear is. And for the rest of the world, Crocs is not sensible footwear.
As a person who has spent a great deal of my job in steel-toed shoes, I completely agree with you, Walkie.
It helps plantar fasciitis.
By the way, best Xbox custom controller right here.
Very nice, very nice. You spent more time playing with that controller than you actually played Starfield.
Oh man, that's ugly.
And there's no shame in that game. I think that was vastly true for most people who have that controller.
I think I sunk about 50 hours in Starfield. I don't remember. I beat the game. I wasn't a fan of the ending, but
yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, isn't the whole point to be you spend more time collecting the controllers than actually using the controllers? Or
now, see, my comment was meant to be genuine. Falky, your comment.
Hence the collection right here. Look, I've got more of these too somewhere.
Hey, the shame of it is I'm not on the Xbox platform. I will still throw down for an Xbox Design Labs controller. I quite honestly, I love going into Design Labs and just like crafting my own thing. I have a few that have like my gamer tag engraved on them. So
oh, nice.
I wish PlayStation would do that.
Very true. Yeah, it would.
Yeah, I wish they would too. Yeah. Hey, Logic, I'm gonna go Design Labs right now and create a controller that says Cope.
Oh man. Doom, what have you been playing? And please riff long enough for me to get to my basement utility room freezer to get my Rockstar energy drink.
Oh, that ain't happening. But
I'm about to go get a drink myself, actually.
Dude, even if you haven't been playing it, just still talk about some games you haven't been playing that you wish that you were playing.
I'll try to go into this one game. Everybody, if you haven't played it, God, where the hell have you been? I went back to my PS3, started playing World at War. And if anybody knows the campaign on that and playing that on veteran, it is literally almost impossible to beat.
Hey, Logic, I'm gonna go design.
It's like
create a controller that says Cope.
Oh man.
Wait a minute, who's
Doom? What have you been playing?
Oh, it's Logic. He has stuff going on in the background. Anyway, so even playing that
myself, actually.
They sit there and tell you about the grenade and everything. It's like even on easy mode, they're calling grenades at you like crazy.
Try to go into
I hate hearing
everybody. If you haven't played it, God, where the hell have you been? I started back. I went back.
Can you help me out here? Maybe I should show my Crocs.
Yeah, let's not do that.
I muted him, so now you can. Now he's back. Okay.
No, it's okay. I was going to show everybody my Crocs, but I don't want the show getting canceled or something like that because we don't sponsor that.
Yeah. So somehow the mic was picking up his headset. I don't know how it was working, but it was just looping.
But hey, guys,
anyway.
I'm done. World at War, trying to beat it on veteran. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's weird that it was picking up the mic because my mic is hardware muted at my mixer right now. So even when I came back on, it wasn't coming through. So I don't know. My apologies if that caused some feedback. Let's go on and move on to segment 2. This week, I've rearranged the format that I used last time because I wanted to get directly to the foolishness and the hypocrisy that's been running around the gaming community this week. Starting with third-party console exclusive games may soon be obsolete. This story over on Game Pressure by Matt Buckley. Third-party console exclusives games may soon be obsolete. The age of third-party console exclusives might be on its way out. Author and Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier had an interesting take posted on social media recently. The post was in response to Circana's Matt Piscatella sharing that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth being the best-selling game in the U.S. market the week of January 25th. The previously PlayStation 5 exclusive title had a hugely successful launch on PC via Steam that week and appears to signal some changes within the larger gaming industry. Schreier had 2 takes on the information. The first was that Steam has become a bright spot for many game makers as console sales have flattened, and console exclusives will become obsolete soon, especially for third-party publishers. Looking at the first take, Steam is a huge platform for video game developers. There are more games on Steam than anywhere else, and it's much easier for developers to publish a game there than work with one of the 3 major console companies. Plus, Steam is such a huge market, as shown with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but also other PlayStation published titles like Helldivers 2, which became PlayStation's fastest-selling game in the weeks after its launch early last year. Why would a developer want to restrict itself to one box or platform when there's such huge potential on PC? So, BRAP, we'll start with you and your perspective on the series of articles and ongoing punditry that it kicked off, that cycle that it kicked off on Twitter.
I honestly, I don't even know where to begin with this because I got to take a drink. Actually, hold on. This is.
It's nonsensical, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, it really is. I mean, I don't understand, and I've said this a million times on this show. I really don't understand why we have this conversation only in the gaming industry. It only happens in the game industry. Nowhere else would we talk about exclusives. We never say when it comes to streaming services like Netflix or HBO Max or Amazon Prime or the shit other ton of streaming or Apple TV. We never sit there and say, well, exclusive content on those streaming services is going to be obsolete in the future. Stranger Things is going to be on Apple TV. I mean, like, and I said this on Crossfire last night. I feel like a lot of them are, some of this is like this. I don't know. I called them console hippies because I feel like they are sitting in a circle and they're having these conversations about this, I don't know, this utopian world of where there's no exclusives, where there's no barriers, where there's nothing, everything's free. And it's just like it's weird.
We
Yeah.
have
like
a term for that. We have a term
what's
for
that?
that. It's called a circle jerk.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And the reality is like, where are they getting the idea that exclusives are going to become obsolete? Like, where is Schreier seeing something that we haven't seen in terms of any data that points to, well, exclusives are going to go away? I'm not seeing that. It's nonsensical, like you said, Falky. And we said this a million times, like consumers, the market, they gravitate towards exclusives, right? They want exclusives. Exclusives are ways to exclusives are product differentiators. That's we have exclusives in other aspects of consumer products and goods, like we were joking around about McDonald's earlier, right? Fast food. The Big Mac. No one's saying the Big Mac should be at Wendy's. No one's saying Stranger Things should be on HBO Max. No one's saying those things. No one's having those conversations. No one's saying is, well, Apple, they should have their Apple AI on Samsung phones, or Alexa should be there. And that's not Alexa, it's Siri. I'm sorry. Don't mean to insult you there, Logic. Siri's the more intelligent. But you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't sit there and say Apple should have Siri on Android phones, or that Apple exclusive content is obsolete in the future.
So one thing I will say, just to bring some balance to the force.
No balance to the force.
There are people who, for a very long time, have asserted and claimed that, hey, a Mac OS, what we used to call OS X or some people call it OS 10, whatever, should be made available so it can be licensed and used, right? And this is what gave whole rise to, I forget what they used to call them, a Hackintosh, right? People who would figure out how to break the licensing restrictions on Mac OS and slipstream them, crowbar them onto a PC. I think one of the differences in those conversations are when people would claim that, maybe there was a big volume of that back when Apple controlled so little market share. And they still control relatively small market share in comparison to Windows. They're never going to surmount Windows. And that's long been like we like to talk about false narratives. That's long been a false narrative about how you measure the impact of the Apple ecosystem, is to say, well, it's just overshadowed by like the Windows presence. It's like Galactus in comparison to, a normal human being.
Oh, but by the way, do we just get a proper Galactus?
Maybe we got the back of his head, so it's still to be seen.
It looks like Galactus.
It does. I mean, Galactus is definitely in the movie. It's just a matter of whether or not it's going to be a properly. We don't have no idea who that. Like, that's a completely different ramp. Let's not jump into the.
I know. But real quick, I don't mean to interrupt Logic. The one thing I and you're not wrong. Like people with other things, like not just Mac OS. I've heard, like, there's been other examples of similar conversations. I think the difference, though, is there isn't this fan fiction around those. There wasn't fan fiction around those conversations. There wasn't misinformation around those conversations. They were basically like, hey, I would like the idea of having, not having to buy an Apple, a Mac desktop in order to have access to the Mac OS system. I get that. Like that's a thing. But some of the stuff that's going on now, like this idea that that somehow that exclusives are going to totally be obsolete without providing any market data that shows that we're heading in that direction is crazy. If you were to say, hey, you know what? I would like a platform where I could play all the games. I get it. But somebody said fear mongering. I don't think it's fear mongering, but this, I don't know what this is. This is crazy. It doesn't make sense to me because we haven't seen anything from a data perspective that leads me to believe that exclusives are going to be obsolete. Because when exclusives come out, right? When Nintendo drops a Nintendo Switch 2, and Nintendo's already said, hey, we're going to release a Nintendo Switch 2 with exclusives. And as you like to say, Logic, those exclusives are going to sell Bonga. PlayStation, Ghost of Yote is going to come out, probably going to sell well for PlayStation. And it isn't just, but they also gloss over the idea of what exclusives do. They keep people in the ecosystem. They bring new people to the ecosystem so that they can do one thing: sell you more shit. Because that's what they want to do. They want to sell you more earbuds. They want to sell you more headphones. They want to sell you more controllers. They want to sell you more software. They want to sell you subscriptions. They want to get you inside the store. And that's what those product differentiators do. Especially when your business is, you're in the business of manufacturing hardware, the way Apple and Sony are. That's how they get people to buy. That's my rant.
Yeah, no, you just mentioned the thing, right? So people, yell and scream because you used to yell and scream because they wanted access to Mac OS. The difference was then you had plausible reason. Like there was linked causality that people wanted access to Mac OS on open hardware because the ask to buy a Mac was a $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 ask, right? To get onto a MacBook Pro or to get onto an iMac or things. It was expensive back then, right? It still is. On the gaming side, the ask isn't that, right? The ask is you can buy a $500 Xbox Series X or you can buy a PlayStation. And so there is no causality. There is no reason that people don't gravitate to the box that isn't yelling and shouting about its available exclusives that's associated with cost and an inability to access it. People are consciously making a choice to buy the box that does have exclusives. And that's another thing that people gloss over. So it's just super interesting. again, I mean, for me, the big thing is the way that the logic just doesn't logic, and the way that the math just doesn't math. The thing I wrote on Twitter this week is, let me just get this straight, right? Because this is a singular voice track that comes from the same camp. According to them, PlayStation and Xbox hardware is virtually the same. There is no difference. They link that to these statements that Jez Corden has talked about, that hardware is just going to be incidental, which again, if you follow that hypothesis out, what you're really saying is nobody cares about hardware. They just want hardware as a mean to access games.
I just logic real quick, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't understand. I guess what annoys me is that people aren't paying attention to the consumer market and what consumers are buying. They are sending the demand signal. We want these things. The hardware incidental. Are you shitting me? Like, what is NVIDIA? What did NVIDIA just release?
So, and this is one of my points, right? And so,
yeah,
this is in some ways that statement, along with the one I alluded to earlier by Phil Spencer, is a very PC-centric statement. It very much reflects how we behave in the PC market. In the PC market, by and large, if somebody goes out and buys a budget GPU, if they go out and buy an not an RTX, if they go out and buy a Radeon 6600, 6700 XT, if they go out and buy an RTX 3060 Ti, 4060 Ti, those people can play and have access to the exact same games that I have on a 4080, right, on a 3080 Ti. I mean, there's differences in performance, obviously, in very, 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 very super rare cases, and sometimes really edge cases that don't have anything to do with performance. One of us might be able to play a game that the other can't, right, just because of the specific intermix of hardware and what bugs crop up. But by and large, the hardware that you buy for your PC doesn't really gate your access to a given game. We have access to the same games. So I'm going to come back to that later. The other thing that this crowd promulgates is that the biggest games are on both consoles, that the demographics of both consoles largely play the same games. Those games are common, and those games are available on both platforms. Jaffe talked about this when he was on here. Piscatella talks about this. And then they make the leap, and they say, therefore, based on those two reasons, exclusives will go away soon. And so, but the questions that don't get answered, and to me that get glossed over, is the market share that PlayStation and Nintendo have is egregiously greater than Xbox, especially now. People who have bought the Xbox console are representative of roughly about 9.85% of the console install base. There's a reason behind that. And Xbox is the one who's not touting exclusives. The other two platforms do. It's a $92 billion plus business. So again, how do you then leap to exclusives will go away soon? Again, I talked about this before. The Nintendo Switch, very super popular console. However, 60% of those consoles are owned by people who have access to the other two consoles. And so if over 50% of my install base has access to another console, why would I be encouraged to put my games on the other platform? Would that just not mean that people wouldn't bother buying a Nintendo Switch? Of course, when we bring that up, what this pack of pundits likes to always assert is, oh, well, we're not talking about Nintendo. Okay, so now you've moved the goalpost, and your hypothesis, which you asserted was an industry-wide hypothesis, now you're isolating it to really just a discussion of PlayStation. The reason those Xboxes sell, when I go to make, so I agree with part of this, right, theorem. The hardware capabilities of both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, arguably on paper, right, if you compare the PCB traces, right, if you compare the architecture, they're roughly the same. So then why in the world does a customer, when they go to the cash register, choose one over the other? They choose it for the difference in the games that they give access to. Now, you can complain about that being anti-consumer all you want to, but this is the follow-up question I asked today. If you claim something is anti-consumer and you still buy it, is the corporation at fault or are you at fault? I don't know the answer to that question, but what I do know is by objective evidentiary numbers that we have from SEC filings and earnings calls, a vast majority of the market is making a choice to buy the other two consoles. As far as I can tell, largely based on the availability of exclusives. So how in the world does your originating argument get to any root cause assessment that is at all valid or credible? Dude,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say something. Product differentiators are important for, we talk about hardware manufacturers, right? Or companies that are companies like, let's say Netflix, right? That provide entertainment. Product differentiators are important for them because it allows them to distinguish themselves from their competitors, to draw people in. We see this with other consumer products, Nike, Air Jordan. You can't get Air Jordan on Reebok. There's a reason why Nike signs, a plethora of basketball players to shoe contracts, right? Because what? They want people to buy Nike. They want that differentiator to be associated with that brand specifically. Okay. And people interact with those things every day as consumers. And again, I go back to this is no different in gaming. And so I think it's a very disingenuous conversation unless the market was showing us otherwise. Hey, the market rejects the notion of exclusives. The market doesn't want that. The market's not going to sustain that. Then I think we could have that conversation, but that's not happening today.
Do you guys mind if I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. I know I'm hogging the mic here, so
no. Actually, the more you keep saying I'm starting to bring more stuff up. I know David is a little bit younger than the three of us. I'm almost 50, so David's like, still the young buck of the group.
Falky's actually 25.
That's what happens, when you live in the future and everything. But BRAP and Logic might remember this. When cable first started, you had HBO. HBO had exclusive content on there. They had Fox. They did a deal with Fox, and that's why you were able to sit there and see Star Wars, Aliens, whatever else. And then when Showtime started, Showtime had their exclusives, and it just went all the way up. You don't see Sopranos on Showtime. You don't see what is it, like Stars. Stars has Power or Spartacus. You don't see them on those other TV shows or other TV channels. Sports Illustrated, I think, might have been the first sports magazine to ever have the swimsuit issue. And that was for a while before like Sport did it. Sporting News might have done it. But then FHM, Maximum. You have to have identity for people to come and support your product and want to buy it. That's the whole reason why PlayStation and Nintendo have succeeded. Yes, PlayStation has grown to where they do have a lot of third-party games, and that's great and everything. But when you sit there and you have the exclusives that they've had, Siphon Filter, Twisted Metal, all those back then, they did whatever deal they did with Final Fantasy VII, but they started their own stuff. That's how they got that identity. Why do you think everybody says, we want SOCOM, we want Killzone, we want Resistance, back, we want, these games? That was their identity. Xbox moving their stuff over to PlayStation and Nintendo, there's no more identity to that no more. It's just like, I mean, even Steam has identity. They have I can't remember the VR game that it's only, was it to MetaQuest? Oh my god, I can't remember what the hell
well, Steam for a while had, and I apologize, I figured out what was wrong with my Streamlabs grabbed my camera mic instead of my mixer mic for some reason. So I apologize. That's how you guys were able to hear YouTube coming from my MacBook Air when I whipped off to grab my energy drink. So I apologize for that. In the chat, if my mic sounds too low or far away from you guys, let me know. Yeah, I mean, Steam for a while had Half-Life Alyx, which was exclusively available on as a VR game on Steam. I mean, it was not locked to or get into any hardware. And then Meta, I can't remember. Meta has had several instances of exclusives that they've grabbed, because many VR developers target. I still want to call it the Oculus Rift. Target the MetaQuest first, because when the Meta Quest, I don't know if it was the first one or the second one. I think it was the second one that came out. It was the largest selling VR headset available on the market. It didn't require tethering to a high end gaming PC, so lots of people bought it. There was a huge install base, and so it made sense to take money from Meta, Facebook, Oculus, whatever you want to call it, to make a game exclusive, at least for a period of time. But go ahead, do.
Well, with actually, Josh Ayers brings one up. The new Batman game, that's exclusive to Meta. You don't hear nobody complaining about, Jesus Christ, man, or I apologize. Why isn't this one PSVR 2? Why is that exclusive? Why is nobody complaining about that? Because in all honesty, I don't think anybody...
Pick me. I have an answer for this.
David, be my guest.
It costs a lot of money to develop for different SKUs, right? That should be common knowledge. So for smaller teams that have to prioritize, they will pick whatever is the one they want to work on first. Oh, hang on a minute. Am I just repeating what the developers have been saying for the last 3 years? Oh, no. How dare I say something like that?
Wait a minute, David. Wait a minute. I've been told plenty of times, and the gentleman I might be speaking of, that porting games is extremely easy. Very easy.
Yeah, and the person who keeps telling you that has never done it once in their life. They wouldn't even be able to tell you where to begin. So, let's listen to the armchair experts instead of the people who do it for a living. Oh, hang on. That's another common theme amongst influencers for the gaming social area, isn't it?
Well, fuck it. You just save a copy of the file and name it .xbx instead of .psn, and then you got a port.
Yeah. I would love for one of them to take something and it's got .exe on the end of it and turn it to .axe and see what happens.
So I think, and I think part of the problem, right, in the space is that there's shadows and shades of truth to little bits and parts, and it's a whole like Ben Kenobi from a certain point of view, right? Yea, verily, admittedly, it is in some ways less complex to port a game between PS5 and Xbox today in certain aspects than it used to be 2 or 3 generations ago when they were on entirely different platforms, when there was no common abstraction layer or anything or any commonality right in the code, other than like they were both programmed in C or C+ or C#. That being said, right, there's still complexities and difficulties. Xbox games sit on a completely different abstraction layer than what PS5 games sit on. So that's a delta. And again, in a software development and software engineering environment, those deltas mean things. They don't mean zero. Yea, verily, you can have an argument that like the total sum aggregate of a Kokomo model that I run for software estimation for the way we used to port things 15 years ago versus the way we port things today has differences in it. But you can't tell me that the aggregate of that answer comes up with an over and under. I've said the same thing about the argument of, hey, today, publishers should cut us some savings because they don't pay to get games printed on CD and ship them. They just deliver them from the cloud. Well, yes, there's some shade of truth in that. But then there's a whole over-under analysis that has to be done to convince me that cloud storage, data ingress and egress, building out data centers, infrastructure, all that type of stuff comes up as a net sum over or under the old model. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I just don't know. I can run my own models and make my own calculations. But at the end of the day, I'm not inside the fence, right, doing those, and I can't assert an absolute truism about those things. So there's some things that are true. It is easier today in some aspects, but I can't assert that it's that the aggregate. What I can absolutely say is, and this is what I always assert, the net is not zero. So therefore, there is some calculus that each of these publishers and developers run that says, in order to put my game on another platform, is the juice worth the squeeze? Does the ROI that I'm going to get from that surmount the extra LOE? And so what I can definitely say is the cost of putting a game on one console is X. The cost of putting a game on 2 consoles is X plus Y, where X plus Y is greater than X, right? And so the ROI for deploying on X plus Y has to come out greater, right, than the total cost involved.
And when you go to Xbox, yes, I apologize. I'm saying things that I've said over and over and over and over and over again. When I go to Xbox, I have to run some additional formulas. What is the competitive nature of that market isolated to the console when my main competition isn't other similar to games in the genres of the game that I'm making, but is actually the opportunity cost that each Xboxer, particularly the Game Pass subscribers, run through their minds when they're bouncing, accessing my game versus accessing the other 500 games that are in Game Pass. That is my competitive market, which is analogous to third-party publishers in the competitive market on Nintendo. The Switch has broken down a lot of those barriers, but if you go back just 2 generations to the Nintendo Wii, third-party support dried up in what should have been the midlife of the Nintendo Wii because those third-party publishers got sick and tired of competing against Nintendo titles, first-party titles, because every time they spent tons of money to do something like port Madden to the Nintendo Wii, and Madden went up against Mario Kart or some wackadoodle Nintendo first party that was absolutely not in the same genre, they would get their pants beaten off because that game would sell millions and millions and millions of copies and their game would sit on the shelf. I'm sorry, Frankie, go ahead.
David needs to answer
Hey.
Metro.
What did the prick ask me this time?
He wants to know your
Oh, the ROI on the car radios. Well, they cost me nothing, and I sold them for a lot. So the ROI was amazing. However, you can't get a percentage when the denominator is 0, because you can't divide by 0. That should be grade 4 mathematics. But anyway, we don't hold that against Retro.
I will actually, David, before you started, sorry, but you guys actually sat there and said about the porting, yeah, it might not be that hard, but Logic, you sat there and said it, and David said it in our chat, it's the ROI. Are you getting that money back and then some?
Well, and I just want to go back, Doom, because I work in the software development industry. I don't want to be crucified by my colleagues. I did not say it is not that hard. I said there's an argument that you could say that it is, that there's less complexities in some ways today than there used to be.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just try to make it as easy as possible so my brain. But David, go ahead. I'm not going to screw up anymore.
Which question am I answering here?
Logic would know that. I don't remember if we were on a specific question, David. I think now, right now we're coming around and rounding out the conversation too. I'll actually go back to the beginning of the first thing that I was going to say. So these statements came out from Jason Schreier. I'm just going to be blunt because I may be the furthest right in this opinion. I personally think Jason Schreier is one of the most irresponsible gaming journalists in the space. That's just me. I know it's not a popular opinion, but my contention is that a lot of the things that he writes, the things that he's well known for, he has written those up based on interviews and access to developers who are not permanent employees of the publisher that he's writing the story about. They are migratory employees that go around to various companies in the industry, right, as games ramp up, and as the industry has always historically done, have been the people who then go away, right, and rotate to the next project, because there's no need for those employees to be part of the standing force. Now, out of 50, right, 1099s and or contractors that you bring on as a game ramps up, there are some small number that you extend offers to as a publisher that you want to retain and become a permanent member of your employee staff. But one of the things that studios do, that publishers do, is they keep an eye on how much fringe they're paying out for permanent employees. They don't like keeping standing armies around when the total LOE that you need for game development doesn't retain that demand signal throughout the entirety of the life cycle of the SDLC. So games come up, they go to their E3 or Summer Game Fest or whatever, they pop their trailer, they let people know. We've heard this for years before, that we now know that one of the big reasons they do those trailers is not to get gamers juiced up, but is to advertise that there is a game that's been in pre-production, that they have their teeth in it, that they have good product to show, and now they're at the point where they're looking to bring, droves of other developers on to push through the remainder of the SDLC. But they don't retain
tool and an investment tool.
Yes, but they don't retain those developers, right? You know, like there's the staffing profile of a gaming project, like many other software development projects, goes, you know, exponentially up. They ramp and then they ramp back down, right? So, I mean, so again, Jason Schreier bases his opinions on a lot of those people who are migratory, so he doesn't really get the voice of the permanent employees who probably have a different opinion. I don't care whether that opinion sways it, you know, definitively across a threshold one way or the other, but the point is it's not there, and so it's inherently biased. And that's what he's built his reputation and his popularity on. These comments about exclusives going away, yes, I mean, I mentioned on Twitter, like, again, if you're a pundit in the gaming space, if you say something enough times every few months, eventually it will be true, and you will be able to stand there and say, and assert, I was right, which is what the vast majority of popular gaming pundits do. Is they just keep saying the same things over and over and over again, and eventually they become true. Hey, guess what? At some point, somebody asserted that they were going to announce the Nintendo Switch 2, and on that day, it was true. So a bunch of them would run around and say I was correct. So I don't put a lot of stock, personally, in what Jason Schreier says. The data doesn't support it, at least as far as it being imminent. And the hand-wavy, this thing is eventually going to happen. I mean, again, I've asserted that eventually we're all going to be playing in the cloud, because it doesn't make any sense for me and BRAP to have gaming PCs on our desk that we utilize 26% of the compute capacity for, when other people could share and benefit from the other 73%. So eventually that's going to stop. Energy, environmental conservatism, all that stuff is going to come to a head. We're all going to be playing in the cloud, and nobody's going to own individual computers anymore. I can keep asserting that every other day until it eventually becomes true. That doesn't make you knowledgeable or credible, and it doesn't cross the threshold from commenting on deterministic analytics, which define and describe, I'm sorry, not deterministic, descriptive analytics, which describe what has happened in the past, to predictive analytics, which is taking that information, running them through an algorithm or a model, and therefore predicting what's going to happen in the future. That is not the chasm that they are crossing. They are just commenting about what they know has happened and extrapolating a randomized result, kind of like out of an ABM, instead of actually doing predictive analytics. So that's my point in the credibility of that. Anything else you guys want to add?
I got my spiel out.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we heard the
Yeah, we can hear you, Falky.
Pause, but we didn't hear the comment.
We heard it.
No, it's all right. The wonderful Google product is not working very well for me today. So calling Jason Schreier a journalist is being very generous. It's almost like saying that, you know, admitting that Michael Pachter is actually a decent analyst.
Oh man, remember when Michael Pachter said the mobile phone industry was going to kill consoles?
And I thought my comment was throwing shade.
Oh, no, they can both go do one with a rusty fish hook. I wouldn't put any trust in anyone either of those two.
Falky.
I'm on very limited sleep, and my filter is hanging by a thread. So, look, you use the word a lot in what you're saying. We've always said the projects, the development projects, and projects require itinerant workforces. And for them to carry on about this, there needs to be, you know, and even the developing studio leads in these smaller studios that go, oh, we've got to make sure that we don't have any layoffs. Oh, you guys are freaking crazy to think that in project world, which these things are, you're going to have a stabilized workforce. It's like saying that the output is just demanding that there's a flatline workforce going all the time, and you're not ramping for these different projects and right-sizing your workforce for it. If that's the case, you're in the wrong area. Don't get a job in any kind of development or building of anything. Don't worry about software. Don't do it in anything that's infrastructure. Don't do it anything that is derivatives. Don't get involved in finance. Don't get involved in any of this stuff. You will inevitably end up getting to a point where you're no longer required to do this job, and you go to the next one, and you go to the next one, and you go to the next one, you go to the next one. That's how the whole industry works in that point. Now, there's obviously teams that develop, there's teams that write, there's teams that do music, and the back end that's the more stable career path in game development. But they still shift around, just not at the same speed as the other ones do. But if you are frontline coding and developing, you will shift multiple times a year sometimes, because they will get to a point where they go, it's just not what we want, pull the plug and go to the next thing. This isn't turning out how we want it to be, pull the plug and go to the next thing. You know how many people have been up in arms about PlayStation cancelling games this year? It's insane the amount of carry on that goes on about PlayStation cancelling games because they failed the first playtest. Clearly, it wasn't up to scratch. In a saturated market, it's not going to get there. Pull the plug and off we go. That's important because that means that, looping back to our original conversation here, this exclusives nonsense they carry on about, exclusives have a place, and they will always have a place in any kind of selling point to the consumer market. Doesn't matter what you're making, games is entertainment, doesn't matter. There will always be a point where you having something that everybody else does not have is a draw card. Just because certain developers' offerings are substandard to their third-party offerings that are on their platforms, which should be the first clue that there's a problem, that doesn't make it, where's the incentive to get involved in that platform? If you're not already invested in that ecosystem and you don't want to divest out of it and go somewhere else because the cost of divestiture is too much, then that's the only thing that's going to hold them there. And I've said this a few times in the last few months, and I still stand by this. Xbox bringing stuff to Nintendo and PlayStation and putting it out on Valve, which to me is the quirkiest of quirky things to do. They have got to put their games up against those storefront offerings. And it's not just the third parties that they know are going to kick their ass in some respects in different genres. I'll use the example of the Indiana Jones game. That's coming to PlayStation soon. That thing is going to have to outperform a number of other games on the PlayStation. And it'll have the same problem, but with different competition points if it makes it onto the Switch. Forza Horizon 5, same problem. It's got to compete against other games that are well established on those storefronts. Completely different games across two completely different storefront platforms, because what Xbox is trying to chase is the player base that are prepared to pay for something on those storefronts. PlayStation's offering isn't we're going to pay you to put your game, like contrary to what some of these idiots will say on their podcasts and on their YouTubes and Twitch streams and all the other stupid shit they pull out of their ass. PlayStation isn't saying we must have these games on our console. Xbox is saying, can we please access your customer base? Because that's what PlayStation's got. That's what Nintendo's got. What's the biggest asset? They have a player base that will consume. They have a storefront that has an engaged player base of consumers that will consume. That's what their most powerful bargaining chip is in this whole argument. That's why PlayStation and Nintendo, for all the history that they've had together, they don't fiddle around with each other's customer bases in trying to poach one from the other, because that will be a race to the bottom and they'll both lose. And neither of them is dumb enough to put that at risk when they are at the top end of the food chain and everyone at the table that they've brought to the table is eating really well. They're not going to blow that up. Microsoft and Xbox tried to blow that up, and you saw the response when PlayStation and Sony and Nintendo and the big Japanese six just basically went, well, we'll just close the wagons and go away. We're more than happy to just do our own thing and we'll exclude you, and Europe can come along with us because we don't have any trade sanctions and we've got the Chinese market and most of the AMEA market. What are you going to do? Sit over in America and do what? What kind of shots can you fire from there? Because rules say you can't engage with China and you've got to be careful in Europe because Microsoft. Like, what did they think was going to happen? Now they got to pay the piper for their attempt to blow the industry apart when they well overestimated the purchasing power that they had. And now they got to go hat in hand and go, well, please, sir, can we come and have some food from the table as well? Now, I'm probably making this sound grotesquely worse than what it should be in my examples, but that's like the most literal version of this is what it is. What makes Nintendo and PlayStation hold those customer bases? The exclusives. Now, there'll be some point of crossover, and again, this is Mark Cerny. Rising tide floats all boats. PlayStation's not going to go head-to-head with Nintendo on a handheld. It's absurd to think that they will. There would have to be some level of mass capitulation and a huge change of leadership at both of them, where one must have poked the other guy's wife or something like that to make them explode or implode that level of success that they're getting. They've got free reign. They've both got access to China now. They're both forcing access into India, and the Middle East is really keen to go along for the ride. Europe is not an expansion zone at the moment, and it probably won't be for the next 5 years. But the exclusives that they offer that are just like, this is a Nintendo property, it is not going anywhere. This is a PlayStation property, it's not going anywhere in its original form. And everyone goes, oh, what about Lego Horizons? Like, that's a totally different concept. Lego wanted to make a game. PlayStation saw an opportunity. There's licensing involved in all the rest of that. They're making bank with the Lego, like the physical Lego stuff. They're making really good bank out of that. And the game is done decently for a Lego game. It's a dormant, effectively a dormant IP at this stage, because they've run both of them through the ringer on selling them. They've both been in the service, the PS Plus service offerings, and they're both on a PC. Well, if you can wring another $10-15 million out of it, why the hell not? It's a license agreement, and the publishing is handled elsewhere. So those sort of items are exclusive to the to those customer bases, and it keeps those customer bases engaged. Now, if Xbox is going to come over and have a crack at doing this, not only have they got to compete with those other games that are there, they've also got to make sure that they meet the standards that those customer bases are expecting. Like, this isn't just a flick it and switch it and it's happy days, and all these Xbox commentators are saying, oh, they're begging for it to come over, so we've agreed and we've done the nice things. No, it's nothing like that. This is a hill that Xbox has got to climb, and this is just from a marketing perspective. To get access to those customer bases, they've got to put in the hard work to get the goodwill, because an awful lot of those customer bases have had Xboxes in the past, and they feel very let down by the current management that's now asking them to re-engage just in a different ecosystem and platform. So it's not sunshine and rainbows. It's tough work. It's going to be a climb. The new people coming into gaming, this is the second point of this exclusive piece, and sorry for rambling a bit, is was it 25% or something of all PlayStation 5 owners are new to gaming, first console. Something like 40% of Switch owners are first time into gaming, first console. That's huge. 150 million Switches sold. 40%. That's 60 million. That's a lot of people. That's twice what they've got on the series consoles. That's twice what, if you said the whole amount of subscribers in history of Game Pass is twice that, and then some, just on the Switch. And that thing is, 15-year-old technology now. You don't get too many first-party games on it every year, but the access to the new gamers coming in, they're not choosing to go to Microsoft. They're not choosing to go to PC. PC gaming is stagnant. It's not even close to what some of these PC MRs would have you believe. It's probably not a nice way of, anyway. The PC elitists that swear black and blue that PC gaming is absolutely running riot over everyone else. It's not happening. The numbers aren't there to support those claims. To stop making those claims, I implore anyone who hears that to just punch someone in the face and tell them they're wrong. You'll get a really interesting reaction. No, sorry, we don't condone violence here. Maybe tickle them under their right ear and see what happens. But the PC piece, you see the publishers, like you saw in the financial stuff that's been coming out in the last 2 weeks. The focus is not on PC at the moment as a primary point. It's a secondary point only to supplement where the primary's failing against other publishers or their timing's not right. It's a supplementary point to put them out, only because the tools that they're building these games in allow for faster compiling at the PC. Some of it's strategic, like the Assassin's Creed Shadow game that's coming, got delayed to get the polish on it, but so they could release on PC day and date at the same time. You've got other ones who are choosing to do PC 6-12 months later because it allows them to get the game better, say better in air quotes, to get it out on PC, though PlayStation's still struggling with that concept. When they do it in-house, when they do it third party, it's really good. They just, those points of inflection of where are we going to put this game, and it's not necessarily exclusivity by first parties. This is getting to this point of third parties. The new customers to gaming, they don't care about a lot of that nonsense. They just know where's a good place to invest to get the stuff that I want. And Xbox is going to have to crack that nut really hard, because that's what PlayStation and Nintendo are really strong at doing. And I'm sorry that seems like a run around the garden path in a few different aspects, but it all comes back to that crescendo of developers want to be able to develop cost effectively and get the best bang for buck. The platform holders that have got the best access to people who are going to give you those bucks are Nintendo and PlayStation and Steam. And they've got really good at dealing with third parties and playing with each other in a very fair and equitable manner. I'll say that in inverted commas, so that they don't fuck it up for each other. And they can all have a really good crack at who's going to get what part of the pie, and be supportive in that, trying to make sure that the whole thing doesn't implode, because let's be honest, they are making absolute bank with this thing at the moment. Gaming is the biggest part of the entertainment industry, including movies, music, TV, the works. Gaming is by far the biggest slice of the pie. If you look at the entire entertainment pie, it's like over half. Some of it's 2/3 at times. It is massive. They don't want to stuff it up by playing silly games with each other and dragging each other down. Now, does that mean us as consumers are going to pay for it? Of course, we're going to pay for it. But as I keep saying, they will go to the extent that for as much as they can put their hands in our pockets and pull out as much money as we're prepared to let them take, they will get to a point where they'll begrudgingly say, no, it's not going to happen. No, this $100 for GTA 6, if they try that it's not going to sell. People will just pull back and say, well, we're not going to buy it on launch. They'll wait till it goes on sale in 4 to 6 months. I don't care. I've got other things I can play. It's a saturated market. And this whole notion of, it's not going to be on PC straight away. It's not going to be on Nintendo straight away. Well, it's not going to Xbox day one. So where does that leave you? Well, I got to make a decision. I really want to play the next GTA game, and it's time to upgrade my console. Where am I going? Power of exclusivity. And that's not even PlayStation buying the exclusivity. That's just a marketing deal. It's like they had with COD for the last decade. It's a marketing deal, but people associate COD with PlayStation. That's the power of exclusivity, or perceived exclusivity. So for Jason Schreier to say exclusives don't matter anymore, it's going to disappear in a hurry, it's just going to be play everything everywhere. Well, he's got a history of getting these things very, very wrong. Like Logic said, he talks to the wrong people. He doesn't talk to those in the know, and those in the know are never going to talk to Jason Schreier. There's no way they're going to open their mouth to that clown. He can't keep things straight. That hit piece he wrote about Naughty Dog was disproven, and the hit piece he wrote about PlayStation not investing in indies, he wrote that hit piece 2 years after they did the whole shift to focus more on indies, and he still got it wrong because he talks to the wrong people. He wouldn't know his head from his ass if it jumped up and slapped him. But people need to write stuff. And in defense, and I'll put this in his defense, and the same defense for a lot of these journalists and a lot of these commentators, they pay their bills based off engagement. They got to write something. What gets great reaction from those that click on the links? Sensationalist headlines, doom and gloom. That's why they call it doom scrolling. They don't get positive news. Remember the magazines? You never got anything negative. Everything in the magazines was positive. It didn't matter if it was Hyper, IG, Game Informer, all of them. Everything in the magazine, when you had to walk down to the store and pick it up and pay your $5 and take it home and read it from cover to cover 10 times that week because you had to wait for the next one to come out. It was always positive. It was positive about the games coming. It was positive about the games they reviewed. It was positive engagement with the developers and that when they did their opinion pieces. And ever since social media popped up with this, we're talking about it you can say whatever you like because it's not considered a media. So you say whatever you like, you can't get sued. All they do is talk about the negatives. Or they spin a whole heap of bullshit to say that, these are dominating. This is better than that one. Or my team's better than your team. Who cares? No one cares about the team stuff. No one gives a rat's ass. I'm not getting paid to sit here and talk about PlayStation and Nintendo in a positive light and throw shit on Xbox. I'm just telling it like it is from my professional perspective. And I can wax lyrical for forever about the issues that PlayStation has had in their history and the issues that Nintendo have had in their history and the issues around Valve and their secrecy because no one knows what they're doing because they're a privately held company. Gabe could choose to do something completely nefarious tomorrow and no one can stop him. But at the moment, we're all pissed off because Xbox is failing to meet its potential. Their leadership hasn't been changed, and there's people out there waving the green flag saying that they are dominating the industry. And then these idiots come out with exclusives don't matter. They'll be dead and gone in a matter of years. It was 12 years ago when we were told this is the last console generation and it's going to be the end of it from here on out. It was only 6 years ago when we got PCs are going to be the future and consoles will be dead by the end of this generation. There won't be a 10th. There won't be an 11th. This is it. 9th gen, that's it. All over and done with. And yet, for as much as Steam and Valve and Epic Game Store and GOG and all the rest of it, and even Microsoft's bloody efforts to try and promote PC gaming, the thing has hardly shifted in the last 6 years. Where's all the growth coming from? It's coming in console. Even though it's plateaued at the moment, nearly all the growth is coming in console because even mobile's not exploding like it was. And mobile's having huge problems now with all the new media and advertising laws coming through in Europe and America. So that's where most of their money gets generated from. To suggest that exclusives are going is effectively saying, hey, look at me. I've got no clue what I'm talking about, and I have no interest in being correct on anything. So, thank you for my rant.
So one thing, a couple of things that I'll add before we move on to the next story. So, I mean, all indications, as far as we can tell, are that Xbox games can go to PlayStation and be successful. And I don't think, and again, that's a matter of, it's a difference in how the market responds and the causality versus what a lot of pundits say. Right now, a lot of the dialogue around this in the gaming community is, so for all of you guys saying that nobody wanted Xbox games, people sure are buying them on PlayStation. I'm like, yes. I mean, that's good for Xbox. From the consumer perspective, this whole thing about exclusives, yes, yea, verily. There are consumers who love the aspect of games being on all platforms and games on any platform being accessible via multiple panes of glass. There are lots of people for whom that is good. But a lot of the problem with the dialogue is that a lot of this dialogue comes from people like us in terms of they are people who buy everything and have access to everything. But they are people unlike us who choose to champion one of those things over the other for some reason I don't understand. And so part of my lack of faith in the dialogue that happens from a lot of the quarters is that most of the market, a vast majority of the market, picks one thing. They pick a $500 purchase to make once a generation, and that's what they have to access games with. And so those people make choices because those people don't have the options to buy multiple things. So they make choices. And what is one of the things that drives the choice that they make is the availability of exclusives. Often my commentary on this topic is, it kind of doesn't matter to me because BRAP knows that I say this all the time. Hamp don't make choices. if I want to play everything, so I want to have access to everything. When I choose not to have access to everything, as I've done now by going PC gaming only, it's because it's a choice that I made, not a choice that was a limit, right? Driven by a limit. So a lot of this dialogue comes from people who don't have to make this choice, trying to talk about the demographic that does, and thereby being disingenuous about the causality. The last thing I'll say is, we've talked a lot about why, from the supplier side, why it makes sense for the suppliers to offer exclusives. The one thing I want to add is the reason some consumers like exclusives is because it gets you optimal products. There is a reason people buy a lot of Apple stuff, and that is because a lot of Apple stuff works really well together. I mean, it's a very small thing, but my AirPods, I have iPhones, iPads, Mac Mini, MacBook Airs. When I pick up iPods and I put them in my ear, it connects to everything automatically without me doing a thing. When I'm on Android, I put stuff in my ear. I have to go into my settings. And I mean, there are some of these aspects I like. They're not really a big deal. I'm just saying it's the difference. I have to go into settings, find the Bluetooth device, connect it. I'm constantly fighting with the struggle of once I connect them, like walking away from a thing and then coming back and they don't automatically reconnect. I put my AirPods Max on, my AirPods Pro, they connect to all my stuff. In fact, if I have both my phone and my Mac Mini and my iPad, and I start a YouTube video on my Mac Mini while I'm listening to music on my iPhone, it automatically switches. So there's a reason why people like things like this. Convenience, optimization. People like games that are exclusive on a platform because very often it delivers a great experience. And from a development perspective, this is another argument that we get all the time. Oh, well, this game we saw was exclusive and it looked like crap and it wasn't great. So therefore, this whole notion that games that are exclusive to one platform are highly optimized. I'm like, that's not what I said. You're not listening. From a developer perspective, when I start a project and I make a decision to go single platform or multi-platform, one of the formulas, right, one of the metrics that goes again into the Kokomo model, right? I'm talking about parametric software estimation, is that my level of complexity and my opportunity for success is highest when I limit the number of platforms that I go to. So that's the potential. Whether or not the team sticks the landing and delivers on that potential is a completely different topic. But in terms of predictive outcomes, when I go exclusive or I go to a limited number of platforms, my chance of success of sticking the landing is highest. And that goes into my calculation, right, of ROI. Right, even in inclusive of good reviews, good critical uptake. So let's go on to the next story. Finally, GTA 6 reconfirmed for fall 2025 release window by Take-Two CEO and Rockstar Games owner. This news story over on Comic Book Review by Sam Fang. Grand Theft Auto 6 has once again been confirmed for a fall 2025 release date. The CEO of Take-Two Interactive recently confirmed that the game has not been delayed. Speaking with Variety, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick, my favorite CEO in the gaming industry, assured fans that the game is still on target for its previously announced release window, but he wouldn't give a more concrete date as many fans of the long-running video game franchise would have liked. We've announced a pretty narrow window. So I think our view is that right now, that's fine. Let me do some color commentary on what Strauss has said. Strauss just made a very honey badger-like statement. I don't have to put a date on it because it's GTA 6. I gave you a window. Everybody's satisfied. I don't need to move the needle at all. I'll go on. And then when it's appropriate, of course, Rockstar is going to have more to say. Doom, what are your thoughts on the notion that you are going to be playing GTA 6 this calendar year? And the CEO of Take-Two, the most reliable, heart-stopping, body-popping, heart-throbbing, woman-loving CEO in the gaming industry, has now corroborated and confirmed that fact. He has quadrupled down on the notion that you're going to be playing GTA 6 this year. How do you feel about that, my friend?
I will say this. Hopefully I'll be able to get the game because I got a lot of stuff I want to play before that. I mean, last year I literally played GTA 5 last year for the first time, and it's been out since what, 2012, 2013, something like that. I probably won't be playing it day one. I can almost guarantee I won't be playing it day one. I'll just wait until next year and see if I cleared out a bunch of stuff this year. So is it Was there anything in there? Because I did not see, reading the article that you posted in that. There was nothing. Everybody kept on saying, oh, this is going to be like $100 for the game and whatever else. To me, that really doesn't matter. I mean, if it's worth $100 too, if it's worth $100, you know, I've bought plenty of God of War and the Spider-Man. I bought the collector's edition. That's worth it to me. So, but I won't be playing it day one. No.
Okay. BRAP?
I think you know the answers to this. AAA banger, day one. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be picking this up. I mean, look, it's been what 13 years since 13 years, right? Since GTA 5 or 12 years. I forget. Maybe no, 12 years. I think it's 12 years, right? I don't remember. It's been a long time. It's been more than a decade. So yeah, I'm definitely I'm excited. You know, Strauss is kind of interesting. He's like, look, here's the window. It is what it is, and we're gonna launch when we're ready. You know, we're not gonna put a definitive date out there yet. I think that's gonna be saved for later on in the year. I think they're not gonna. He's not gonna. I'm sure they're gonna show more footage during like Summer Games Fest or when it's that time frame, and they'll probably announce. I would imagine a release date if in fact it releases this fall. I'd imagine they announce a release date this summer at one of those shows. So, but yeah, I'm there day one.
Yeah, so I mean, look, Strauss Zelnick is the Heartbreak Kid of the gaming industry. He is the Shawn Michaels of the gaming industry. Falky, your feelings about the now assured release of GTA 6 this calendar year?
Yeah. Geez, you're putting it on thick, aren't you? Well, what's fall in the US? It's September to November, isn't it?
Late September to late December.
Yeah. So it wouldn't take much to get it into 2026. Look, I'm curious on a couple of things. Looking at their financials, I don't think they got a choice. If it falls out of this financial year for them, they're in a world of pain. They've not like. I'm not. As it is with anything these days, if you're claiming it's going to come out in that window 6 months out, I still say, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. He's adamant that it's coming in fall. It's still got a potential to move. I'm not hearing massive issues with it, but I'm not hearing that it's, not running behind either. They're certainly pouring effort into making sure it's ready to go, but whether we get the final polished version or whether they spit out the first draft and the online component and everything else comes later, I don't know. I'm sure that they will show it off to us at some point. Like the June at the Summer Games Fest is probably the best opportunity to do it if they're going to do it at an event. I imagine that the marketing deal with PlayStation means it could show up at a state of play or if they ever have another showcase maybe. But I mean, it's I'm not really subscribed to this notion that it's the biggest thing since sliced bread and it's going to save the gaming industry and all the rest of that. Because yes, it's going to be a big release, but geez, Take-Two's put some bloody faith in this thing, and it's not going to have that 6-month impact that people seem to think it will. It'll be a couple of weeks leading up to launch, 4 to 6 weeks post-launch. You wouldn't want to be launching anything other major in that respect. But let's not forget, GTA 5 has sold a crap load of copies, but that thing's been around for a crap load of years. At the moment, the sales numbers for GTA 5 are pretty much anybody new who's coming into gaming that wants to give it a try, but it's not really making bank for them at all. It's just padding up the stats on that. So, if Strauss said that's what their plan is at this point in time, well, that's what their plan is at this point in time. They're going to release it in that window. I would not be surprised if at all if they get closer to that point and they go, you know what, we're just not quite there, and we're going to push it out. It would not be unusual in this day and age for them to get a month out, 6 weeks out from release date, look at the Go Gold checklist and say, you know what, those couple of things we're just going to push it, and then it lands in February or March. Because it also depends on a couple of other points around what's the marketing window. What's the lineup for, if PlayStation does do the marketing, then they're going to be solely focused on that. PlayStation won't have any of their first parties lined up against it because that would just be stupid. Then they go, all right, well, what's our window? If we don't do it in October, November, then what's our pre-Christmas? Then what are we doing? Are we going to do it in March? We wait till we get out to March and do it then. Yeah, there's an awful lot of moving parts, and I don't think that Take-Two and Strauss have got all the ultimate say in the outcome. If they miss that pre-Christmas window, they might have to wait till March, depending on if PlayStation's got a game coming in February 26th, like they're saying that they will. So, yeah.
Well, we're definitely going to have to make choices this year. We've talked about, them knocking up against the Switch 2 release window whenever that comes along. I've talked a lot about in the last few weeks about how look at this stage in my gaming life. I'm playing a lot of games as a service. I'm, engaging with some first player games, but I'm not being wrapped around the axle about, when I finish them or being on a schedule. I'm just not a thirsty content creator, right? Where I feel like I have to meet a lot of gaming obligations to satisfy other people, which I've spent a large part of my life doing. So I don't I'm not sitting here salivating for GTA 6. But what I've talked about in the last few weeks is how I do get happy to see other gamers getting things that they're looking forward to. And so I know that there are a lot of people out there hungry and thirsty and looking forward to GTA 6. And so my highest hopes that it hits this year. I think I still get excited watching the gaming industry. So we're getting new hardware this year. That's a big deal. Like the PC has been getting new hardware since last fall. Some of that hardware has been disappointing. Some of that disappointment has been Microsoft's fault, not the hardware manufacturer's fault. All of it's coming together. I'm just super happy for people to getting stuff. It's like Christmas for gamers, right? All over the world. So I'm looking forward to this game hitting. I believe it will kick off a round of console sales. When we talk about console sales being flat, I think there are a lot of people who are sitting and waiting, playing a lot of their games as a service, because this is a game that, even where there's not like a strong game as a service alignment to it in terms of like other types of games with seasons and battle passes, it is still a living game, right? A live service game in terms of it's constantly getting content. So people are looking forward to that. People are looking forward at shifting. It's kind of like a World of Warcraft kind of thing. People are excited about it. And I'm happy to see that excitement. I'm happy to see how it impacts the industry and catalyzes as a catalyst to the industry. So, I'm looking forward to it for what it will do for other people. So I'm hoping it lives up to Strauss's assertions as far as date. Next bit of shenanigans to debunk going around the gaming community is this news story over on Tom's Hardware by Christopher Harper. Valve shoots down rumors of RDNA 4 based Steam console. It routinely tests new hardware that isn't put into its own devices. It's still a question of when rather than if for a future I always do this because I have both. Steam Deck. Following a report from Gaming on Linux pointing out that recent rumors of an in-testing Steam console were simply vapor, an official statement from Valve developer Pierre-Luc Griffet on Blue Sky confirmed this to be the case. Griffet clarifies that the pre-release Mesa Vulkan work on AMD's RDNA 4 architecture is perfectly in line with what Valve's been doing since AMD's Vega architecture. While it's true that Valve is indeed testing with an updating software for an upcoming GPU architecture, this does not mean they're suddenly relaunching the Steam Machine initiative. So I think this is, as far as the gaming community goes, this is kind of in two parts. There are people who love the Steam Deck and are, hyper focused on watching Valve now and what goes on from a hardware perspective. These are things that happen all the time. Like in the lead up to the RTX cards, we get typical leaks that are now expected. of, their things are up on Geekbench. We get the same thing in the smartphone space where we see new Qualcomm silicon, right, hit Geekbench, and Apple silicon hit Geekbench. Some of these things are things that happen all the time. Valve is invested in testing hardware on its operating system in preparation for things that are happening at both its hardware and its software ecosystem. So that's part of it. I think another part of it, why this thing caught heat, is because, again, there's pundits, right, coming from the vector of, see, Valve is doing it and supporting it, so it means it's the right business model, right? And what we're talking about is a hybrid-like console that is open, that would have access to other stores. Now, the way Valve does this new variant of SteamOS, right, with Proton packaged with it as an abstraction layer that allows you to play all of Windows-based games on Linux rather than just their Linux ports, is analogous to what Xbox is doing for the future of hardware, and leans in this direction of being open. Valve doesn't support directly things like putting the Epic Game Store on the Steam Deck or putting the Xbox Store on there, but they will. They don't enable that directly in software, but they don't prevent it. And in some cases, they will put guides, right, and other collateral up that tell you how to do it or point you in the direction of where you can go get that. Falky, any comments on this debunking?
I've got comments on the Steam Deck piece, but I don't know. Do you want me to just go wild on it, or do I need to put the filter back on for a little bit?
Maybe not go wild, but maybe just get out your first point, and then I'll hit some other members of the panel.
Well, I'm going to give a big round of applause for all the commentators and influencers and all the media people, media journalists that said, this is definitely happening. This is great. We need more of this to happen. Only to be absolutely pissed on from a great height by the actual people in the know who they didn't bother to go and ask as soon as they were asked about it. Oh, look at that. Maybe it's time for some people to reconsider their career choices and how they pay their bills, because, geez, they make some absolute meals of this stuff. Just go and ask them. They would have told you. And it's easy to tell when someone's hiding something from you in a face-to-face conversation. You just go, hey, can you confirm this? And they go, no comment. You're like, can you confirm it's not happening? And they go, no comment. You're like, all right, something's going on here. And you just got to watch for the cues. Like, it's insane that, again, there's a lot of insanity around these days, but just that they go, this is, one person says something, all the media sites copy from that one source. That one person who started it doesn't even have a source to confirm it. There's no documentation that supports any of those things. They make this stuff up, and all of a sudden you get a week's worth of crap carrying on. It went from, oh, Steam's going to do this. The next thing we know, Steam's coming into the console market, and PlayStation and Nintendo are going to get absolutely stomped. You're going to be able to play all your Xbox games on this new thing because it's that great. I'm like, hey, whoa, up a minute. They're not even the same operating system. Where are you getting this crap from? Like, it's just ludicrous. But, props, big hands, get out the Walkley Awards, Pulitzer Prizes. Good work, guys. Great to see it. Great to see it. Congratulations. You're a bunch of F-wits.
Yeah, lots of people will be able to go off and write variants of Twilight at this point, or 50 Shades of Grey. BRAP, any comments on the Steam box? The Steam box, not Steam box.
Yeah, well, I would have liked the Steam box. The idea of having kind of another option under my TV as opposed to PC to engage in Steam, that would have been cool. I actually like the aesthetic of the Steam boxes when they came out. I remember the Alienware is probably my favorite one. I
had that one.
Yeah, it was really, nice looking box. So I don't know, like it's going to be interesting. Like I wonder, with the Steam Deck, them, kind of dipping their toes in hardware there. I wonder if I've always wondered internally if that's something they'd revisit. Obviously, they didn't have much success with the first Steam box, but I think, like, for me, like I would be interested. Like if they said, hey, we're doing another Steam box, I would Jeez, Doomsayer. I would sorry. His profile picture there. I'm sorry.
I'm
Jesus,
sorry about that.
Doomsayer, give me some warning, man, before you throw up that profile picture.
Sorry.
I was
My son just
done.
came down. He's telling me.
Oh my god! I was like, what? That's not Doomsayer. And so, look, I guess what I'm saying is, if they released a Steam box, I might be that target consumer. Long story, short story.
So Doom, you have not gotten in the PC pool. You have long. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I was in there for a split second.
Yeah, and I want to say, if memory serves, you've also long asserted that like the cognitive overhead of having to be what I call your own self-sysadmin, that is juice that is not worth the squeeze in terms of playing games versus being on a console and just being able to go, right?
I'll say this: if Steam did their own console and I'm able to sit there and play everything, yeah, I'd buy it in a heartbeat and get rid of all the stuff. This is the only reason why I'm sticking with PlayStation. Everything's going to PlayStation, so it's like it's just one box. I don't have to worry about buying another box or anything. But if Steam did it and PlayStation games went there day and date, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So even without the PlayStation day and date, would a low administrative overhead console-like experience that enabled PC gaming be something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, I'd definitely give it a try. I would definitely give it a try.
What is the ceiling on how much you would pay for that?
$800. I definitely do 800. If they did like a Pro or something like that, or like how Xbox has a Series X, Series S. Yeah, I would. I don't shy away. I want to get the best of the best. So TVs, whatever it is.
Okay, very cool. No, it's super interesting to hear. That's yeah, I mean, what I've long asserted is like if you made things relatively easy for people, right? There's striking space to figure out where in the price spectrum that will hit with some number of consumers. I've seen, I think, a lot of things that get a little crazy talk when people say, this is a thing that could come along and take market share from Xbox and PlayStation. We had this when the Steam Deck started. It was a lot of terrible towel waving, asserting that, this is going to eat the Switch's lunch. And I was like, no, that's foolishness. And I got comments back like people would like, because I said this is not, so the Steam Deck is not, it's not a console. It's going to have some administrative overhead to it. It's going to require some needing to understand, right, getting to the desktop, getting to a Linux environment, futzing around with something that's beyond just the plug and play experience of a console. And I got, and in particular in terms of, because the argument was that, here comes the Steam Deck, you'll be able to do all this stuff with it. You'll be able to enable Game Pass on it and get your Blizzard games on there. And I'm like, no, what you will be able to do is play it in an out of the box experienced way. But if you want to get in there and muck with it, you're going to have to get into the same realm of space that PC people do. And what I got back was a comment like, people will just watch a YouTube video and it will just work. And I'm like, you have clearly never actually troubleshot anything on a computer-based platform.
Oh my gosh.
Because I've talked about this on the show before. When I used to root Android phones, like if anybody who has that experience knows that you go and try and replicate the instructions someone has posted, even on what is it, the XDR forums, and there's every single time somebody has skipped a step, they have, there's a point where like something didn't work right away and they took an alternate branch, but they forget to document that they did that. Like this is why in software development, one of the biggest things that we talk about and hang people up by their toes about is like not documenting what they did, because we expose people daily to the pain of trying to replicate what some developer did that's not properly documented, right? This is generated in an industry where people get paid six-figure salaries, right? Because one of the things that we harp on people doing is like you're not just going to watch a YouTube video and it's going to just work. If you play a Steam Deck out of the box, you're probably going to be fine. If you try and monkey with modifying it and try and get it to do something that it doesn't do out of the box, and this is what I talk about, Valve doesn't prevent you from doing this. Sometimes they post guides for you to do it, but they don't include it in the out of the box experience. All that is getting you into a realm far beyond coming in, pushing a button on your console, and just playing a game. So the notion that these things are going to eat a chunk out of the industry, to me, isn't really realistic.
Yeah,
Next-
I
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's fascinating to me how people think that, oh well, I would YouTube it, so someone else will. I'm assuming that's the perspective they're taking. No, I feel like we talk about this every week, and again, you can apply this to any other consumer product, right? Not all consumers are built the same, want the same things. I mean, Hamp, you don't like to wait in line, right? You go to amusement park, you're getting the speed pass, right? Some people are like, you know what? I'm not going to pay for the speed pass. I'm okay waiting in line.
It's not that I don't like to wait in line. Hamp doesn't wait in lines. Period.
Yeah. And by the way, I used to be one of those anti-speed pass people until one day I spoke to Hamp, and I actually happened to make it to an amusement park and realized what the wait times were. I'm like, the hell with this. Best investment I ever made. Hands down. Like, we rode so many rides because of the speed pass. So, but my point is, consumers, they want different things, they value different things, and so I find it disingenuous to apply what might work for you to the rest of the consumer market, because that's really not how consumers view things or behave or think about things. So,
well, pundits, they love their silver bullets. They love to assert that everybody in the industry will do this one thing.
It's not
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, it's not a one size fits all type scenario. And that's every facet of any consumer product. Not everybody wants Air Jordans. Not everybody wants to pay $200 for tennis shoes. Not everybody wants to go to McDonald's and get the Big Mac. Not everybody wants to go out and buy, $100,000 full size SUV. Not everybody wants to go out and buy, a $400 set of tires.
But some people do, and that's why
Some
they
people
make
do.
those things. That's why there are suppliers in the market. But suppliers don't come into the market to offer goods that people don't want.
Exactly. They're not investing dollars to sell shit they can't sell. Yes, sometimes they release things that the market says, no, we don't want it, reject it. Those things happen, not just in gaming. Everyone flips out. Oh my God, a game failed. That means gaming's unsustainable. No. The market reacts accordingly. It's I feel like I say this every week, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, Logic.
Okay.
Hey, Logic.
Yeah.
Can I just hey guys, I gotta actually roll. But I appreciate you guys having me on again. It was great. BRAP, I promise you, I will fix that picture right away.
No, I was dying. I was like, what is that? I think I know what that is or who that is, but
that's
I think it's funny, but it's total inside baseball.
Hey, you guys have a great night. I'll check you guys later. And thanks. Appreciate everything.
Hey, dude. Thanks.
All right, Doomsayer. Thanks, man.
Thanks, David. Logic. See you guys later.
Yeah, mate.
Okay, going on to our next debunking, and then we'll see if we have time for the regular news rundown. This news story over on Game Rant: Avowed rumored for eventual PS5 release by John Bonelli. It seems rumors of an Avowed PlayStation 5 port are coming alive as the game's release date draws nearer. Avowed is Obsidian Entertainment's new fantasy RPG based on the Pillars of Eternity universe that's set for release later this month on February 18th. As with any other Xbox first-party game, it will release day one on Xbox Game Pass. Recent months have seen a ton of discussion surrounding Xbox's first-party games that are rumored to be making the jump over to PlayStation 5, following Xbox's apparent shift in strategy. A number of high-profile Xbox games have already been confirmed to appear on PS5 in the coming months. Just recently, Xbox's 2021 smash hit arcade racer Forza Horizon 5, considered one of the Xbox Series X and S's very best console exclusives this generation, has been locked in for the PS5 release this spring. PlayStation gamers are still waiting for the promised Indiana Jones and the Great Circle port, and Obsidian Entertainment's sci-fi RPG sequel, The Outer Worlds 2, confirmed a day one PS5 release back in December at the Game Awards. Furthermore, Starfield is rumored to show at next week's Sony State of Play with a PS5 port announcement. Now, as far as I know, that is a complete rumor that is not yet corroborated, but there it is. Avowed game director inadvertently sparks PS5 port, and this is why I pulled this into the rundown for. I don't know if I meant to pull this in as part of debunking, but anyway, it's in here. At the moment, Avowed is only confirmed to be releasing on Xbox and PC, but a recent min-max rapid-fire interview with the game's director, Kerry Patel, has made some waves. Early on in the interview, host Ben Hansen slyly hits Patel with a sudden suggestion that Avowed is almost certainly destined to be brought to PS5 at some point in the future. Caught off guard, Patel instinctively gives a small nod before seemingly catching herself and switching to a nonchalant shrug. Now, I've seen this clip. While interesting, before I get totally hypocritical, this is very well in the lane of accusations that I've previously thrown out that, oh, we're now all FBI profilers who are looking at people's facial reactions and tics and reading their body language and declaring whether or not they're telling the truth, as if we're watching some Iranian spokesman on a podium and whether or not he's giving off, things that we should be picking up in humans. So, I mean, it's out there. I mean, but the extrapolation to reality based solely on that is a bit hyperbolic. Now, when you intermix that with everything that's gone on since the February 2023 Xbox gaming business update, I mean, there's some scratch.
February 2024.
Right? Yeah. Oh, sorry, February 2024. Yeah. Right. I mean, there's some scratch here, right? I mean, everything else is going to PlayStation 5. Why would this be an exception? This is also the very super weird thing of this thing is being put on BattleNet as its release, as part of its release. So, which seems, again, to be a very heavy nod in the direction of this thing's going to be multi-platform because everything on BattleNet is. Well, not necessarily multi-platform, but is obviously, I mean, outside of terms of being PC and Xbox, but lots of things make sense that this would be also be coming to PlayStation 5. BRAP, any thoughts?
Yeah, the whole like reading her face, her reaction. Oh, that's confirmation. I mean, look, to your point, I mean, if the other games, if we weren't seeing other first party games making their way to PlayStation, I would say it's probably not true, but like to your point, there's some scratch there. I think it's only a matter of time before Avowed makes its way to PlayStation. I think we'll see. I think what we're seeing now is there's some exclusivity window with Xbox, and then eventually these games go to PlayStation 5.
I mean, sometimes, Brad, but now we're starting to see day and date. Question for you.
Yeah,
I mean, would Avowed, regardless of what we have in ad copy right now, would Avowed make sense as a day and date release on Xbox and PlayStation?
I don't know. I think so. I mean, it's at this point, if just tear the Band-Aid off. I mean, if the intent is to release these games on PlayStation and you're ready, to your point, Logic, you're already releasing other games day and date, just release Avowed, on PlayStation.
Well, my thing, going back to where this criteria started, which I don't think this criteria is in place anymore. The criteria that started back in that February business update was we're going to look at each game, make an individual evaluation as to whether or not it makes sense to keep it on this platform exclusive. In many cases, we're going to wait and let that game basically earn as much as it possibly can on Xbox. And then when we think it's hitting that expiration date of where it is strategically impactful for us to keep it exclusive, we're going to look at moving it right over to other platforms. Now I question, I don't think that that's a requirement. That was an allusion to governance, right? And having some type of board and having some type of conversation at the executive level about, people providing their input and then a decision being made about whether or not a game was going to be multi-platform or when it was going to go. It seems like that's no longer like a point of governance, and that's a more of like at the direct project greenlighting level. Is this game going to go or is it not? I look at this thing now and I say the only reason to keep it, even if it has a timed exclusive, is if it does something to move the needle for Game Pass, even in as much as retention on Game Pass, or does it do something to move the needle in terms of selling boxes, selling consoles. I don't think Avowed. I don't think it's a thing to move the needle on Game Pass. I don't think it's a thing to bring subscribers on. I think Call of Duty was a thing that brought subscribers on. I think Indiana Jones, even maybe to a certain extent, brought a few subscribers on. I don't think it's a thing that sells consoles on Xbox. I do think it is a thing that helps retain people, but the retention play, I don't think mandates that you keep it exclusive. I don't think you impact retention numbers, right? And, you know, in and of itself at a single title based on Avowed. I think part of that assessment for each per title becomes a matter of, if I let this thing go day and date, does it invoke now I'm forgetting what the term is. Does it lead to defections, right? Does it lead to people jumping ship and going over to PlayStation and pissing on Game Pass because they feel like going over to the other console they get access to all the games? Defection is something that has occurred on the Xbox platform over the last couple of generations. That's why the market share has gotten upended. So again, in this instance for this game, I don't necessarily know that is a deterrent to defection, but I do think it plays in terms of retaining people on Game Pass, in terms of keeping their subscription going, right, in a contiguous format, right, from month to month, because it feeds the release train, right? It's not Stranger Things level, but it is like if you're on Netflix because of Stranger Things, but you stay on Netflix because of Karate Kid and Squid Game, right? Then it's that kind of play, the latter half. So I don't know that it makes a ton of sense for this to not be day and date. That being said, I mean, they are where they are. They haven't announced anything at this point. This decision was probably already made a while ago. I wonder if it comes to PlayStation 5 faster than the 3-month window. Falky, any thoughts on those things?
Got a few of them. I'll start with I suppose my first initial thought is it loops back around to the point I made earlier around they need to be able to compete against the other offerings in those from third parties and first parties on the other platforms. And if they're going to continue to cannibalize the sales of these games by offering them in Game Pass, even though they're not in the base tier, that you got to go to the mid tier, which is getting a price rise anyway, that's still not sufficient to cover the potential sales that they could receive. So not doing them day one seems a bit counterproductive if the focus is profitability, which is what Satcher and Amy Hood said, by the way, for anyone who wants to argue that point. Big Boss and his CFO said profitability, no longer looking at growth. If it's got to be profitable, they'd be chasing the maximum amount of sales potential from day one. If Phil thinks he can finesse this thing by going, oh, well, we've got it on Game Pass day one and Xbox players get it day one and PlayStation gets it, Nintendo gets it 3-6 months later or whatever it is, then by focusing on that, you're cannibalizing your sales. And it's already seen in the information that's coming through from the Indiana Jones game. Satcher said it was great, 4 million players. Call of Duty had the biggest amount of day one launch day subscriptions in the Game Pass. Game Pass hardly moved, even with a price rise. It should have gone up more than it did. It hardly shifted. 4 million players is great, but the game sales were down. And that's with those two big games in that quarter. People can say, oh, X, Y, and Z. It's not great. The focus being on maximizing profits should indicate that they'll have to bring these things to all the platforms they want to sell them on, like a third party publisher would, and then just take the dive, cut the cord, make it happen. They would be better off financially doing that. If you're going to try and keep exclusives on Xbox, you've got to make them worthwhile. We're back to the first thing we're talking about. Do exclusives matter? Well, they do matter, and you've got to have a crack at making them matter. Having a time for 3 months and then putting it everywhere else where it's likely going to perform better on those consoles anyway, because more than 70% of the Series consoles sold are a Series S. it's going to outperform your base console point on PC, on PlayStation 5, and potentially on a Switch 2 as well, what are you actually trying to achieve here? Because you're not going to get Game Pass growth numbers by doing that. They said, yeah, with 30% growth for Game Pass on PC. That's great. The revenue didn't shift, and the costs have not decreased. And you saw that in the financials. They're saying the costs haven't shifted anywhere near where they need to. They're still laying off people left, right, and center. However, the focus is on profitability, not growth. So this thing's got to start paying for itself. I don't think a release date strategy is what they need. I think they will get better response by just going, here's the game on these platforms. That's when you can access it. You as a consumer can pick where you want to get it. Do you want to get it on Game Pass? Or do you want to buy it on PlayStation? Or do you want to buy it on Xbox? Or do you want to buy it on PC? Buy whatever you want to do. If this whole everyone plays, everyone wins, and everything's an Xbox and all the rest of it, don't try and go with this staggered BS approach of it's timed for here for these guys and we're giving you the benefit here, but then it'll be over there. It will be absolute carnage, and I genuinely mean absolute carnage in any kind of gaming media. If I shouldn't say it with such openness, because I'm pretty sure this is what will happen, but if the Indiana Jones game pops out on PlayStation and on a PlayStation Pro, it outperforms the Xbox Series S and it outperforms the PC version. If it comes out 4K, stable 60, possibly up to 120, and it outperforms the PC version, then the question is, why would they bother? Why would they bother going anywhere else? And why did they not put it out there on day one? If it got very good reviews from the critics and it got pretty decent reviews from those who played it, why would you not have put it out there on day one? And it'll be the same with Avowed. If they're confident that that thing is as good as they say it is, throw it out there. Give them the choice, because you're only doing what you said you were going to do, giving them the choice to play wherever they want to play. So holding it back onto the Xbox Series Spud and not being able to optimize it for the PC releases because it's running through Game Pass on Windows, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like they're saying so the dad's saying you will do this, son, and son is going, oh, I'm kind of gonna. It's like saying dad says go mow the grass, and son goes, oh, I'll get the mower out, but I'll do this bit today and I'll do that bit tomorrow, and I'll leave a big strip up the middle because I couldn't be bothered. I don't feel like it. Like there's no energy there. It's mixed messaging again. I mean, you saw the interview with the head of the Avowed game, and old mate's asking the questions, and he goes, "Oh, you probably can't tell me, but just give me a sly nod. Is it coming to PS5?" And there's this big wry smile and jank the head up. I'm like, why was that even allowed to happen? If you were not going to make it day one, why would you let something like that slip out? It just, from a marketing perspective, it is just horrendous. And then from a dollars perspective, it's just stupid.
And the only thing, I think things have been shifting at Xbox in terms of in terms of the decision making they've been doing, and I think the rubric by which they've been making decisions or determining what are now more automated decisions has been shifting. We often call that re-rack and stacking, right? Taking projects, taking a portfolio, taking strategic determinants and reprioritizing them, triaging, right? Decision options I think that they had in their bucket back in February 2024 are now out of the window, right? I think those things are being asked or were asked in Microsoft. Like, why would you ever, of these 5 options that you just articulated are going to be part of your decision-making loop, why would you ever choose these 2? define for me a scenario by which you would ever land on the decision of using these two. Oh, you can't? Okay, strike those from the record. You're actually only using these three. And I think that's the thing, like these days, kind of as you were mentioning, right? Really, as each game comes out, you just need to ask the question, does this move the needle for Game Pass? Does this move the needle for console sales? Or does this move the needle for profitability and engagement? Right? That third one being publishing multi-plat day and date. And if the answer is 3, then why would you ever do the first 2? And I think that's what those are becoming their 3-pronged options by which they're making decisions now on a daily basis.
Oh, and they're conflicted in their decision making as well. You can see it the way that Satch and Amy are talking, and they are. Well, even in the Q&A, that's really where I think a lot of visions come from. And you've seen with Google releasing their information, they've cranked up their capital input for their AI, and that by 30 or 40% over what they originally said they were going to do this year, and the market responded positively. Microsoft has said the same thing. We're going to aggressively expand our capital investment in our AI, Azure, and our intelligent cloud, because that's where the race is at the moment. That's where the game is at the moment, and that's where the expectations from their main consumer base, which is not gaming, it's business, that's where the main demand from the consumer base is, because that's where they're under threat. Their bread and butter makes the big dollars is under threat by competitors, and they've got to respond. Now, they could have responded a lot better if they hadn't bought Activision. And if they have to take an impairment right down for Activision's inability to generate cash flow, that's going to roll some heads way up the chain. So no wonder Satcher's turning around saying, no, make money now. Now, like today, now, you promised me it would make money from day one, and it's made nothing but billions of dollars of losses since day one. So, yeah, it's inevitable that it's just got to happen.
Yep. So I'll address one comment in the chat that I saw. But Xbox had over 140 million hours usage in cloud gaming last quarter. So is that relevant and is that impactful? That's a question. Yes, it had those hours. Xbox Cloud Gaming is only available at the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate tier. And when you take into account Ultimate and what it is doing for the business, Xbox content and services, which included Xbox Game Pass, grew by 2% over the quarter. So in a quarter in which they dropped both Call of Duty and Indiana Jones into the Game Pass service, where Game Pass is only some subset of that 2%, then any Xbox Cloud Gaming hours that are accumulated and aggregated in that only contributed to a 2% shift in a quarter. That to me is not significant. And the only people who are playing on Xbox Cloud Game Pass are your Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscribers. So I don't believe as a standalone analytic that really means too much of anything. That means that you had some people who took an option who already had access to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and could have played it on hardware, expended some of their time playing that in the cloud. And so until that starts to move the needle on Game Pass subscriber numbers, like Xbox Game Pass subscribers who are already subscribers who are accessing games via the cloud, doesn't to me mean a whole lot if those Game Pass subscribers aren't increasing revenue gain from Xbox Game Pass to a significant extent. When this is the magical needle, right? When you start onboarding, and I mean, in order to do this, it seems like eventually they've got to break XCG away from Game Pass Ultimate. When you start getting these customers that Xbox has always claimed that they're going after, which is people in third world countries, people whose countries have enhanced cellular infrastructure because they are more dependent upon that type of broadband because digging cables has been too expensive. When that starts leading, when they start being able to access those customers and thereby driving increasing Game Pass subscription numbers, which again, I think they have to do by making XCG available as a standalone subscription, then that will mean something. But what I've been talking about for the past year is in order to gain access to those customers, you probably have to offer them content that is different than Call of Duty, maybe even different than Indiana Jones, because those type of Western-oriented properties do not resonate with people coming from nations who have different cultural backgrounds. BRAP dropped a super chat from Street Shadow. Not the biggest Schreier fan because he gives me the smug vibe, but I wonder if by saying less exclusives, he means Sony publishing on PC. I liked exclusives, by the way. So thanks very much for that super chat. Super chat, Street Shadow. While I contemplate that, I do want to keep it moving and move on to the next news story because now we've finished most of the debunking, focus-centric content, and now I just want to move on to the general news rundown. This news story over on The Verge by Ash Parrish. Warner Brothers Games suffered $300 million in losses last year. Warner Brothers Games. That's according to a report from, once again, friend of the show, Jason Schreier, in Bloomberg that highlights the struggles WB's games division has had trying to turn out another hit. Though the company had success with Hogwarts Legacy in 2023, it since suffered multiple failures with the twin flops of Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and Multiverses. While its forthcoming Wonder Woman game struggles to coalesce. BRAP, your feelings on this news story?
Was it 300 million? Is that
300 million? Yeah.
Well, it's proof that the game industry is dying. I mean,
Yep,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Back, put a bullet in it. Done. It's
I mean,
finished, dead. Bye bye.
Yeah, I mean, they have. I mean, they've had some misses with Justice League. Some of the other, I forget the other games that released recently. What was it? What's the other game they just released or they canceled?
The Suicide Squad one.
Suicide Squad, but there was a.
Well, their end of lifing Multiverses was what the article.
Multiverse, yes, yeah. So.
Yep. And what was the Nightwing one? Was that? No, that was Gotham Knights. Sorry.
That was Gotham Knights. Yeah. 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 I mean, I'll defer to Falky on this because he's the finance guy, but clearly they're having issues with how their games are performed. But Hogwarts Legacy was a big boom for them, and that certainly I think changed the. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, Falky. I think kind of changed the dynamics of their forecasting the year after Hogwarts Legacy.
They're slow learners, and that's why half the executive team got the arse or decided to leave. Hogwarts Legacy is a what? Single-player, narrative-driven story game. What do people like to buy on PlayStation and Nintendo? And PC to a certain extent. Single-player, narrative-driven story game. It's got a massive IP backing it, so it had nostalgia and it had all this other stuff. It didn't even have the characters in it, just this is the world. And everyone was like, boycott it, it's this, it's that. No, bugger it. It sold like wildfire, better than anyone expected. So what did they follow that up with? They had one studio that made single-player, narrative-driven, very good story games with massive IP in doing some kind of hybrid multiplayer PvE. I don't even know what that Gotham Knights thing would be considered. That was not a smart decision. They should have stuck with what they knew, but they chose not to. Then they went for this massive live service in Kill the Justice League. Shat the bed really badly with that. Again, shouldn't have done that. But hey, why not do that? Then they've got this Wonder Woman game that is forever in rewrite because they can't agree on a direction forward because they're so tied up in what is right and what is wrong and what will the market agree to and worrying about reactions to now instead of then. They had a formula that works. Single player, great story, narrative driven, characters that we know. Simple. Warner Brothers has got so much IP that they could build games on with that. Just the DC universe alone, let alone all the other stuff that they have. And some bright spark goes, no, let's ignore all the good stuff we did and let's go for that because that will be cheaper and we'll have a better cash flow generation. And that's what we're going to focus on because they're looking at percentages and numbers that they don't know how to interpret. Same problem that PlayStation is going through at the moment, same problem that Take-Two has gone through, that EA has gone through, that Ubisoft have all gone through this problem. The attraction of more stable cash flow for having a live service game or some kind of engagement game in that point versus the ups and downs of we spend a lot of money to make something and hopefully it sells. If anyone had enough IP that they could flog out the door at 4 and 5 year intervals and know the thing is going to sell crap loads of, it's Warner Brothers. Because they've got some really big nostalgic IP and they've got access to so much stuff. But they just made the wrong decisions with game style, game choice, and game characters. That they didn't need to, but they did. And now they've got to have the consequences of that coming back to roost. I don't think that Wonder Woman game is going to see the light of day. I would not be surprised if, as I said before, it gets taken out the back and put to bed. It's done. It's no point even trying from henceforth. Just put it in the ground and try something else. But what else have they got coming? Obviously, the live service game, the multiverse game, it launched. It didn't do too well. They pulled it off. Then they launched it again and still didn't do very well. And they ran through a few seasons. Now they're saying, we haven't got enough players engagement. We're making money. We'll pull it off. I don't know what else they've got coming down the pipeline in terms of big games to backfill that void, but they could almost be to the point where they have to go back and look at Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or something like that. You think about the back catalogue up until, well, let's say not Gotham Knights, the Batman one. The fourth one they did, it was on the PS4, Xbox One.
Was that Arkham Knight?
Now. Arkham Knight, that's it. Batman Arkham Knight. Go from there and go backwards with Warner Brothers games, and they've got hit after hit after hit after hit after hit, and they all did really well. And the two Lord of the Rings games did really well. The old Harry Potter games did really well. And between Batman Arkham Knight and the Hogwarts game, they just had so much stop, start. And it's like, well, what are you actually making over there? And the rumors of, potential doing this, doing that. And then they went up for sale 3 times in 12 months and couldn't get a deal done. And then they did the merger and collapsed the share price and the whole thing went to shit. Now they're trying to divest half their stuff. It's a nightmare trying to read these financials and get anything out of them because they've got some stuff that's up, some stuff that's down. They talk about their liquidity and cash flow more than they talk about their forecast. It's just, it's chaos at times, but they don't have a clear direction on where they want to go, but they also don't seem to be receptive to the market and saying, hey, can we have this? Like they've been banging on about a Superman game for forever. But yet they say, oh, it's too difficult to make one. But why? What's the difficulty in making a Superman game? Or why can't you make a Deathstroke game? Or what's wrong with putting all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons and doing a wacky racist karting game? That'll sell some units. Like, they've got so much. So, a Lord of the Rings. Could you imagine them doing a Lord of the Rings trilogy game, like 3 games, do it Final Fantasy VII style? Big, epic, sprawled out maps, freedom to get around, all the good stuff within that entire lore system, and they could go and do that if they wanted to. But no, we're not going to worry about that. We'll flog the rights to this thing off to Amazon and just shit the bed on it. Why? Why would you do that? Go and get Game of Thrones or something like that and put some games out about that. But anyway, it's no surprise that they've taken this massive write down and it's not helping their cause. That's pretty much where they're at. But it's a consequence of them making very poor decisions in not reading what the market is responding to after they had massive hits back to back for a couple of game releases. And they've just gone, oh, we'll completely pivot to something else because we're trying to save money and we're trying to get better cash flow. It's like, nah, yeah. We're old fashioned. We gamers that have money, we old fashioned.
Yeah, it's problematic when the oversight and the governance on that game studio, on that division, is coming from a company that's trying to swim uphill against the whole Warner Discovery merger, and that partially jockeys and gates right the decisions that are getting made. So, Falky, I know you mentioned you needed to go in a minute or two. Anything else you want to?
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Anything else you want to add?
I think it's a mixed. We've got a lot of financial information coming out in this period. So we've got most of the Japanese stuff was coming this week and next week. We've had most of the American stuff come out. You think the Europeans that are reporting us filtering through a bit. If you take the time to read them, and you don't have to understand everything, but you just have to take the time to read them. All you need to worry about is have a look at how they're performing in the current environment, and if they've got positives, then they're doing well. Like, they're not going to set, most of these places aren't going to set the record books on fire this year, and they're not going to do it next year. But the Asian publishers are doing really good, considering. Europe's a bit of a mixed bag. The US is having some issues. And that's just the consequence of where a lot of these things are at, unfortunately. But the overall, I know we carry on about it a lot, but the overall point is they're all starting to peel back because there's an oversaturation. And that's not a bad thing for gamers. We've got an awful lot to choose from in what we want to play. For anyone who says they don't care about the business behind the game and they just want games, well, that's great. Don't talk about the business of it. Just keep your mouth shut when you see layoffs happening, and when you see hiring happening, and when you see games getting cancelled and games getting announced and all that. That's just common business. It's been happening for decades. Don't think that it's something new and that we've got this massive capitulation in the gaming market, because the financial reports from the businesses that operate in this area are strong for most part. A couple of them are in a little bit of trouble, but they can trade their way out of it if they make smart decisions. I was just talking about Warner Brothers. They're going to take a big hit there. They can get around it if they do the right thing. If they don't do the right thing, then they'll find themselves in a worse position. What does that mean? Well, it might mean that it ceases to exist. It might mean that it gets sold. It might mean something else. We've still got these issues, but on a whole, it's looking okay coming into this time of year. So, but otherwise than that, it all just circles around to our first point that we were talking about. Do not believe everything that you see on the influencers and the scam artists, journalists, and all the rest of it are saying out there, because they've just got to put food on the table.
I believe everything these people say. These people be lying, and I still believe them.
Okay, Falcon.
I'll just say very quickly. I did a bit of a shameless plug to Forte. He put up a really well presented video earlier this week. I think it was earlier this week. Getting back in the saddle.
Yes, sir.
Did some. I really enjoyed that, and had missed your dulcet tones in providing your opinions and perspectives. And it's a bugger that I've got to run off now, but yeah, I was really glad to see you back in the saddle, and really appreciate your thoughts and comments from that one. So
I appreciate it.
I'll leave you in his capable hands, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll catch you later.
Now I gotta go make another video. Shit.
See you, Falky.
Yeah, see you, Falky. Have a good one. Thanks so much for sitting in. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
So I know BRAP is walking up on his hard stop. He's got early basketball in the morning.
Basketball? Who's playing? You?
But we want to get Forte in here to talk.
Forte, me.
Super chats. One I want to loop back very quickly on, back to Street Shadow's original super chat. $10, by the way. It's a banger.
Wow.
Not the biggest Schreier fan, because he gives me the smug vibe, but I wonder if by saying less exclusives, he means Sony publishing on PC. I like exclusives, by the way. Had some time to think about this before we get to the next super chat. I mean, my own input on that is, yes, there's been lots of people talking about. In fact, I saw one tweet today saying that PlayStation is bringing its games to PC faster and faster. I believe that is objectively untrue. The span of time between Spider-Man 2 being on console to PC is 16 months. Let me walk that back. I believe that is objectively untrue when you take that into consideration with what they have said. What Herman Hulst was on record as saying back in, I think, 2023, late, when he did an interview, and then all the way up through the Sony Investor Day engagements last year, what they have said is, yes, we're going to close the gap. I mean, and in fact, Hulst's comments were a post addendum the comments Jim Ryan had made the month before that caused everyone to kind of flip out. Ryan had made statements that led you to believe that eventually they were walking up towards day and date. what Hulse said was that no, it's not day and date. You're still probably going to see a 1-year gap, but we are looking to close that distance. And again, you can corroborate that with the investments they made by actually going out and making acquisitions of Bluepoint and Nix's, who are port studios. They have obviously brought that in-house as a core competency so that they can accelerate getting games to PC within a certain distance and make that something that they control entirely within their own destiny. But what they have also said is that, again, it doesn't make sense for them to put games day and date on PC. So let's not leap to wild extrapolations and say, because 14 months is less than the 6 months or whatever that it took for Horizon Zero Dawn to get from console to PC, it's now going to be day and date. That's wildly irresponsible and isn't corroborated by the statements that they've made. Yes, you are going to see it close the range down. And in particular, what you're really going to see is you're going to see them having the ability to make choices, which were not what they were able to do when Nixus and Bluepoint were external. It was a negotiation, right? Hey, we want you guys to port this game. What else do you have on your schedule? And can you get it done according to ours? Because they were external businesses, those were choices for Nixus and Bluepoint to make, to load balance. This is, again, also why Nintendo, I can't remember the name of the studio, but this is also why Nintendo acquired a studio to bring it in-house, because that studio was shopping around to be sold. And what Nintendo was concerned about was it going to someone else where the negotiation about making a Nintendo game port a priority was not going to be the same dynamic between them and that company, that they were going to get priorities from their new owners. And that was not always going to go in Nintendo's favor.
Yeah.
So that's out there. So that's my response to that question. I'll add the second super chat and let Forte take this one away. One more super chat. I'm curious to hear what you all think of this. Why has Microsoft/Xbox dominated the media narrative of the direction of the industry from the position they are in? Your thoughts on that, Forte?
Oh wow, that's a good question.
And then go to BRAP to fill it out if I'm not.
Yeah. Bad. So why has that been dominated? Because they've been the loudest. You know, when it comes to the news cycle, things that's being talked about inside the industry from pretty much the big three. Xbox has been the one setting the narrative because they've been talking about it the most. They've been doing their press circuits. Phil Spencer's been telling people, you know, everything they kind of want to know as of late when it comes to like telling people that, yo, we're not going to tell you that no game is going to go. So, and then the fact that every game that releases underneath them over the course of the last 6 months has been this ambiguity of the fact that, okay, when is it coming to PlayStation? You know, the same conversation is going to happen with Avowed. Like, we know all these games are going to end up there, but the fact that they're just not telling you when it's going to happen, if it's going to be day and day, is it going to be a game that's going to, you know, launch after like time exclusivity? You got to think that they announced that Doom is coming to PS5. We don't know if it's going to be day and date. They did the trailer for Outer Worlds, and at the end of the trailer, it says PS5 Pro Enhanced and everything. So the conversation, it's like they do a really good job in staying in the cycle when it comes to like the narrative. They just don't do a good enough job to market their product the way they need to market their product. So and then you go with the narrative around PlayStation. Their narrative, if they just haven't said anything, it's like, you know, they have all these studios outside of the Game Awards where they announced the Naughty Dog's newest game. There's really nothing else on the horizon. Like, we know there's a lot of games that they're working on, but we just don't know what they are outside of like Wolverine being leaked and some other like games that's on the docket and stuff. But we don't know timelines on any of this stuff. And people just want them to like come out and do a state of play. Like, they've been talking about state of plays, like rumored state of plays for like the last 3 to 4 months. And it's another one rumored for next month. And then it could be the week after that. So it's just that they're very, very silent in everything that's going on, which kind of tends to trend in the direction that, you know, the opposite of Xbox. And we all saw what happened when Nintendo finally came out and announced what the Switch 2 was going to be. They dominated the cycle for about 3-4 days, probably 5. And then it went radio silent again. So it's just that Xbox every day has something coming up that they want to talk about, or some news article comes out, or some game that they announce and they say Age of Mythology and Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition is coming to PS5 this summer. And it's not even Xbox doing it, it's their studios. Like Xbox themselves haven't come out and tweeted any of this stuff. It's like the studios doing it on their own. So I just think it's just the fact that it's just more moving parts going on with Xbox, and it's just fascinating seeing the direction that they're moving in when it comes to like exclusivity, day and date with their games. And we're still trying to figure out what the next hardware situation with them is going to look like. So, you know, that's pretty much what it is. The more you dominate the news cycle by talking, the more you're going to be in it.
Well, and I think, I mean, my own personal take is, I mean, it's the news cycle has been dominated by them because, I mean, in addition to what you're saying, Forte, which I absolutely concur with, is because they're the ones who have the big question mark over them, right?
Yes.
Nobody's really asking what Nintendo's going to. We have a few like final questions, like you like there's a bulk of stuff that you assume about Nintendo and that you believe about Nintendo from their past historical behavior, which has been relatively consistent. There's a few things that we want cleaned up, like how exactly is backwards compatibility going to work with the Nintendo Switch versus the Nintendo Switch 2. They say that they're going to continue to support the Nintendo Switch. Does that mean we're going to see games coming out for Switch 2 and Switch, right? We didn't really, I mean, Breath of the Wild came out for both the Wii U and the Switch, but in general, you didn't see games come out for both the Switch and the Wii U, right?
Yeah.
Is this a console cycle for Nintendo where we're going to see, just like we've seen on the other consoles, games come out for a long period of time that are on both consoles? And what does that mean? What does that look? So there's little things like that, but you don't have this big cloud of question marks over Nintendo. Ditto for PlayStation, right? Maybe a few more question marks, but not a big cloud, right? In general, you kind of know what you're getting from PlayStation. You're going to get first party. They haven't said, and this is part of some of the pushback, yes, the whole live service thing, but you haven't really gotten a, hey, we're abandoning, right, the effort to put out games like T-Lu and Uncharted and Ratchet and Clank and Spider-Man. Like, in general, we know that we're going to continue getting those types of games. It's just we're kind of wanting to see what the mixture is going to look like across the portfolio. So you have some questions, but you don't have these big shadows of doubt. You've got Xbox constantly talking about a different approach on hardware, a different approach on publishing, a different approach on like what our game studios are doing, making acquisitions, right? So you have, whether native, organic, or contrived, and I think you have a mixture of all three of those, right? You just have that type of dust cloud around Xbox, and that's why they're dominating the news cycle. And they're dominating the news cycle because the media outlets know that drives clicks, because we have historical information that tells us that, and they've admitted to that themselves. BRAP, your perspective on that?
You know, I agree with what both of you have said. I mean, I really don't have anything else to add. I mean, I think you guys have really summarized why it is they're, you know, and that they're, you know, constantly or more consistently talked about than Nintendo and PlayStation.
So the last thing I'll try and cover, and I'm beating this because it's a comment in chat, which I got to look at it over here on my health and on my health and monitoring laptop, because I can't see it over on StreamYard for some reason. Game Logic, I'm curious how you feel about talent in the industry. Engineers and developers are created equally. Do you think the quality of developer is the same? So I'm not sure exactly what that means, and if and Azrael, if you want to provide any expansion or clarification on that, as I'm trying to take a couple swipes at what you're asking. Maybe what you're asking is because I make a slight differentiation when I talk about a software engineer versus a software developer. Their Game Logic means aren't. It's on the industry. And engineers and developers are not created equally. Do you think the quality of developer is the same? So again, I'm going to riff, and hopefully you can expand on it further. That provides a little clarity. But I think maybe that's because I sometimes make this difference between a description of a software engineer versus a software developer. That's a semantic difference that is largely associated with what ground they cover, right? A software engineer tends to be more classically educated and starts to learn about things like software process and software architecture, rather than just being a hands-on keyboard developer. So we do a lot of work in the conceptual space, whiteboarding, a lot of spaces where things aren't defined. And so your software engineers, or at least people, whether they're formally educated or not, are going to be a lot of people who lay the groundwork for the architecture, the design document, the schedule, the sequencing of what's going to be built in what progress, when integration is going to happen, that type of thing. The other thing I'm not sure maybe you mean is the difference between game developers versus software developers who work in other domains, like in web applications, in business applications, things like that. I'm not sure if what that means and whether or not they're of the same quality. Oh, I'm not. So here, I'm not sure. Here's question. So I don't. So I'll say that the domains are different. I think, as Azrael, not to ramble, but when devs had limited resources and memory constraints, they had to be more creative and clever. Now the tools are easier to work, so that does that stagnate the creative? Okay, yeah. Yes. So yeah, in general, whether software developer or not, I firmly believe that when you have the most constraints of the tools kind of taken away from you, you have to inherently be more creative about how you handle problems. I think that's true. Certain things I won't get into. I think that's true. Let's some good examples I can talk about.
It's that's a rabbit hole, bro.
So let's take a football team, right? To make an easy analogy, let's say you don't have a running game. That's going to force you to try and do other things, right? You have a gap in a talent that you don't have, so you're going to have to lean on other aspects that you have. Same thing is true in business. Same thing is true in everything. Then the progressive evolution of a technology domain industry, like as things become better, tools get enabled. You now have teams who are capable of putting together greater games using Unreal Engine or Unity, or the things that in the past you would have had to code directly to the metal. So then that leads to the question, is that stagnating creativity? I think I want to be presumptuous and think maybe Jaffe would agree with this. I think it means in certain spaces, yes. But the thing that always happens, and this is why I go back to one of the things I always say, people like, oh, well, once developers get these tools, right, games will be made faster and cheaper and in less time. Once developers get, AI to enable, help them, they'll do it faster, cheaper. But like the thing people need to understand about software development, we never give money back. Like if you give me a project and say, hey, we're going to buy this toolkit for you, and you've got 1,000 engineering hours that you don't have to do, I'm going to take that 1,000 hours and put it somewhere else to move up the value chain, because I still got to do product differentiation, right? I still have to give you a reason to buy my product over someone else's. So yes, I think in some ways there's just crap that they don't have to deal with, right? There's models and things that they don't need to do because they can go buy that from the Unreal store, right? But I think in many cases, other teams will take that time and apply it to something else to hopefully make their game better. I don't know, Forte, you get
no. So your football analogy was great. I'm gonna go even deeper with that football analogy.
Hey guys, everybody, I gotta drop, guys. I gotta go.
All right, BRAP. You got control. You got control of the stream, so
yeah, I gotta figure out how to give you guys. There's a way to give you guys administrative privileges, but I can't do it right now.
It's cool.
Yeah. Right, I got to get up early.
Okay, no worries. I think that's going to be a wrap. So thanks a lot for everybody who joined in the live stream. We appreciate you. Thanks a lot for anybody who swings by and watches the archive version of this video as a VOD on the Basement Radio Arcade Podcast channel. We appreciate you as well. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post new content. We'll be back next week at either 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all depending on what BRAP's basketball festivities are next Saturday morning. So thanks so much for coming through. Man, I can't even. Thanks so much, Street Shadow. Thanks so much, Josh Ayers. Thanks so much, Here and Under, Magnetar, Sticks of Truth. Lots of other people. Mary Wilcox, thanks so much for coming through and modding. We appreciate you. Forte, when's the next DPS, man? Do you know?
Well, I know as of right now, it's probably next Thursday.
Okay. We Enough to Keep Going is also taking off for Sunday for Super Bowl weekend, so we'll be back on the 16th.
Let's hope BRAP's basketball team doesn't get traded.
BRAP, if people need to find you other than the YouTube channel, where can they find you?
On Twitter, BRAP_podcast, and Blue Sky Social, BRAP-7 podcast. So that's where you
All
can find me. And here every Friday.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for coming through. As I mentioned, until next time, take care of yourself. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like. Come here to talk to us about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.
That's what they do in